across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Do you know, before we say anything, I just want to complain about something that happened last week. It's got nothing to do with anybody based in this studio or anybody at this company. But normally we have a regular driver who gives me a lift home and also a lift to one of our producers. He was off sick, no problem with that. These things happen. So we had to get an Uber home, right? The total cost of going to Windsor and Camberley from London Bridge was £176, which is a colossal amount of money. Yeah. But let me tell you this, of that £176, 75 went to the driver and 101 was the booking fee charged by Uber. That is simply outrageous. Look, you know, I appreciate the surge pricing. I appreciate that during busy periods, and this was the Easter weekend, that people pay a bit extra. But that money, when there's very, very high prices, which we have to pay, because obviously Asher and I have to get home on New Year's Eve and things like that, when we pay those exorbitant prices, it should go to the geezer that's actually driving. I mean, to say £176, 75 for the driver and 101 booking fee is just a disgrace.
Yeah, and it's I always speak to the drivers, and it's got worse and worse, their rates, you know what I mean? It used to be a good little earner, and they're gradually dragging them down, and they know that the ambition of Uber is to make them obsolete and to be these Lyft or whatever, know what they called? Waymo.
Yeah,
they want to make the way, and obviously Elon Musk has got a unique thing because he doesn't need to use the LiDAR. He's got just all that data from all the Tesla drivers, so it's going to be interesting. And he reckons the costs will go to like a quarter of what they are now when it's a robot.
Yeah, I get that. And look, at the end of the day,
no steering wheel, by the way.
Industries will change as a result of AI and all that sort of thing. And I think that's all good progress and all that sort of thing. But I'm going to tell you, to anybody who's still using Uber, do yourself a big favour, phone up your local taxi firm. I have no problem in saying that whatsoever. Also, Uber, who no doubt will watch this through media monitoring, let's just... Do you know, so you don't insult the intelligence of your customers, stop pretending that you only take 25%, because nobody believes it anyway.
And they don't tell the drivers, because I do what you do. I say to the driver what the cost is. And they go, oh my, because they won't tell the driver that. They keep it a little secret, because the drivers think they're getting a bit more, and then they're always a bit gutted but happy for the information.
By the way, I wanted to ask you this question, Asher. Just
shoot.
Just before we go into anything else, we're going to talk about women in darts. Apparently,
should they be allowed to play darts? It's dangerous. No, we're not about that.
Trans men aren't going to, trans women aren't going to be allowed. But we were watching earlier a documentary on Channel 4 about AI targeting. This idea that Israel and other countries have got, where they can run open source intelligence through stuff that you perhaps might say on the phone, stuff you might say on Facebook, and they can work out whether you're a terrorist or not and kill you based on that. What do you think of that, Asher?
Well, it's an improvement. I mean, we asked this, I remember, to Colonel Richard Kemp, former head of British forces in Afghanistan, and we asked him, and he said, oh, well, it's quite a philosophical question to allow machinery to kill and make decisions. And then I put a brilliant point, it just came to me, like, from the start. I said, but what about landmines? They don't discern. At least the robot is making a decision. A landmine will just blow a kid's leg off. And he went, oh yeah, that's actually right. Yeah. Bring them on.
That's a reasonable point, isn't it? By the way, just to be clear, thanks to Princess Diana, landmines were banned, and instead they're now called improvised explosive devices.
They should have sell-by dates when they go off. Because, I mean, not go off, when they will not go off, because they can be there 20 years later and some kid playing or an animal and it blows it up. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's horrendous.
Cluster munitions as well. This is their illegal technique.
Okay, Noah Lynn Van Leyden says that she has been forcibly prevented from, forcibly retired from the game of darts. Now, we are very strong on this show about men and women being separate in sport. I genuinely think it was soul-destroying to see, the girls at Penn State who came 4th, 5th and 6th in a particular athletics tournament, having their own secret award ceremony and medal ceremony, because obviously they knew 1st, 2nd and 3rd was a complete waste of time. We did initially mock chess when they said that they didn't want women or men in the same category. However, they maintain that chess is an entirely different game with a woman's brain, the man's brain, and therefore it ruins the whole flow of it if you allow trans people in it. And now darts are saying exactly the same thing. Well, look, we've had Sharon Davies on plenty of times. By the way, it lists her occupation as GB Olympic legend, which I think is...
that is her occupation. She is a GB Olympic legend, man.
Sharon has been on multiple times and talked about men in women's sports. Do us a favour, before we talk about darts, just update us as to where you're up to, because I know that you have been ostracised, but you keep on fighting. Are things starting to look up? It feels like more people are listening to you.
Yeah, well, obviously this week, hi guys, this week, a couple of weeks ago, we had the IOC, who at long last, after 26 years, have reinstated sex screening testing so that we can have a protected female category. So that was a really big moment. But like I said, it's taken 26 years, right? So, and if this affected men's sport, it would take about 2 weeks.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, the IOC doing all that is great and everything, but are they going to do like what they did with I think it was the 1988 100 metres when they checked the drugs with more modern tests, the blood tests, and they redid the medals? So will they now put biological women giving them the gold where they should have got the gold and stuff like that? They won't do that, will they?
I would be very surprised if they did, because they don't retrospectively like to basically admit that they got it wrong, because that opens them up to lawsuits. So they will probably maintain the fact that the rules were, you know, even though they were very bad rules and they were unfair rules and they were based on no science whatsoever, they will probably, you know, maintain that situation.
But aren't they opening themselves up to lawsuits by doing that in the future?
Well, because they will just say that was the rules at the time.
Yeah, but so they made the rules, like with the boxing. All the boxing associations said, no, you shouldn't allow it. And they just said, no, we're ignoring you.
Just a matter of interest, I'm sure we've asked you this before, and I don't know if you've done the count, so an estimate is okay. How many medals, world championships, European championships, Olympic medals do we think should have gone to women and have gone to men? Is it 20? Is it 500? Do we have any sort of idea?
Well, there's over 1,000 major international medals that have gone to trans-identifying males in the last 10 years.
And how many the other way around to compare?
Yeah. Oh, none. I mean, none.
Exactly.
Right? None. That's the whole point, isn't it? You know, we have trans-identifying females. So these are females who identify as being men, and they will still opt to compete with the women. We've had two, one in the last Winter Olympics, one in the last Summer Olympics, and women have no problem with that. You know, providing you're not taking illegal testosterone, we do not care what you call yourself or what you turn up wearing, as long as it's a level playing field. The difference, of course, is that trans-identifying men, males who identify as females, have a massive advantage when they go into the women's competition, and so that's what they want. World Aquatics, when they changed the rules, created a third category at a Berlin World Championships about 3 years ago, and not a single trans athlete turned up.
Yes, I mean, it's quite interesting.
Very little
actually.
To do with inclusion.
It does show the effect of hormones, because if you watch kids swimming, girls normally beat the boys when they're about 11 years old because they've started puberty.
Well, you'd say that.
And you can see
that's not true. I mean, that's not true. I'm really sorry, but it's not true. So you might think that occasionally you see that happen, but I can show you that the best swimmers in the world at 11 are still boys by a long way.
Oh, are they? Okay.
So, yeah, so by a long way. I mean, puberty starts in the womb, right? So you end up with testosterone starts in the womb, and you have different sort of surges of it. And the biggest surge, of course, is puberty. Yeah. But all the world records in swimming and in track and field are faster for 14-year-old boys than they are for elite females.
Yeah, but it's not just physical.
I mean, it's hugely different.
It's not just muscle strength as well. It's to do with stuff like eyesight, because men are more evolved for hunting, and so it would affect darts and snooker. Of course, snooker involves a bit of power and motor racing.
All you have to look at is who are the top athletes in darts, who are the top athletes in snooker, who are the top athletes.
All fat men.
chess, they're all men. So if we didn't have a women's category, women wouldn't get a look in. That's the whole point.
I've got to be honest. It does make me laugh when you see, the darts players coming out and they go, "Look at this fantastic athlete. He's about 40 stone."
Player, shall we call it player? But yeah, absolutely. And things like darts is to do with fatigue of the hands, the size of the hands, height. So therefore, if you've got a straighter line from sort of your eyesight to the triple 20, it's the length of your arm. It's all sorts of things. Like you said, it's
we initially, much as we are supportive of your position, we initially mocked chess when they said they didn't want to have men in women's chess, and then when they explained it made a lot more sense.
Women are better at Connect 4. No, it's a joke.
Are they? That's really interesting, isn't it?
But are we still?
What's really sad is that the Supreme Court passed the ruling and made it extremely clear that biological sex in the UK, in the Equality Act, was based on sex. All right, and here we are a year later, and there's still 30 sports in the UK that do not protect the female.
I have to say to you, Sharon, I think that's a really worrying development that is wider than what you're talking about, much as what you're talking about is pushing women out of sport.
It is.
I'm staggered that publicly funded bodies have willfully broken the law. And remember,
why aren't they challenging that case?
The law never changed. Yeah. All that happened was the Supreme Court restated what it was, and we have. I think it's the Equality and Human Rights Commission who, let's be honest, are not going to implement the law. They've literally just.
So can't you take a private case? Isn't there?
You can, and that's what we're hoping to do. So Tracy Edwards and myself set up the Women's Sports Union, and everybody please come and donate and be members and all the rest of it, because we are trying to fight back. But what's wrong is, why should individual women have to keep crowdfunding to take on organisations that are breaking the law?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Why is government not implementing the law?
They wouldn't even clarify the law. Have they done that yet? Because they were dragging their feet.
The Equalities and Human Rights Commission apparently, if we believe them, we don't. But if we believe them, they say that they are writing the definition of what a woman is in order to comply with the law.
They have done it. So they have given that to Bridget Phillipson. She's been sat on it now.
Oh, right, they haven't published it yet.
For extremely long time. So they've done their job. The Supreme Court have done their job. It is Bridget Phillipson and the Labour Party that have not done their part. And unfortunately, today we heard them talking about bringing out this ID, right? This digital ID. And they're not even going to ask for biological sex on this digital ID. And I mean, it's all about not producing a documentation where someone can say, "Can you please show me that you're a biological male or female?" Leisure centres and sports centres and swimming pools, they're service providers, all right? So if they say a male and a female changing room, they're supposed to be biologically a male and a female. I can give you horror stories about leisure centres and swimming pools where 12 and 11-year-old children have been made to change next to men who literally just strip off in front of them. And their mums have no idea what to do. They literally wrap their kids in towels and take them to the corner until these men...
Is that not indecent exposure now these days with the law as it is? I mean, is that allowed?
Well, apparently it's not. It's exposure if you do it in a wood or in the garden or a park, but if you do it in a changing room, it's not. I mean,
I think also the other thing that I've noticed with some, but not all, trans people. We have loads of trans people who actually completely agree with you and just say, look, however I want to dress, however I feel, fundamentally I wasn't born a woman, fundamentally I can't do X, Y, Z. And I've got respect for those people. I always think, if you live your life the way you want to, if you want to wear a frock, get on with it. Doesn't bother me. But what is amazing is there appears to be a large number of these people who insist that, we understand them. They sort of say, well, no, it's for you to accommodate me. And you think, well, you are a bloke in a dress. I mean, it's not that easy to accommodate you.
And also, it's just safeguarding, isn't it? The whole reason we have men and women's change rooms is for safeguarding reasons, and those readings don't change just because someone identifies as something that they're not. And I'm with you. I'm absolutely, I don't care. People should be able to call themselves whatever they like and wear whatever they like within sensible, respectful realms. Okay,
but they don't care, do they, about safeguarding this government?
But if you think about the ludicrous situation that Nicola Sturgeon found herself in, look. If you are convicted of a crime and sent to prison, right, you don't pick which prison you go to, right? The Home Office does. That was true for everyone other than those people who identified as a woman, who were men.
Anyway, but they don't care. You know, they put people just off boats next to schools. They really don't have any safeguarding care. Anyway, Sharon Davis is here. We're talking about trans people in women's sport in the main, talking about Noah Lynn Leuven. Says she got retired by the new rules, and also we had a look at a trans person in a relay before. I wasn't quite sure what it was, but it was a 400-metre relay. It's the race. I wasn't sure what the race was. So anyway, 03444991000. Sharon Davis, GB Olympic legend, is here, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes with.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is Talk, and Sharon Davis is still with us talking about, bluntly, men in women's sports. I just wondered, since the IOC have kind of changed their rules or attempted to change their rules, has there been a major backlash? I mean, I know everyone sensible will support this, but I know that the blokes had really hoovered up some medals in the women's sports and obviously would be reluctant to leave.
And cash.
Yeah, absolutely. You're spot on with the cash. So what we also find is that the majority of sports that that males identify into are the ones with the money. So they'll be the ones with the circuits, like the snooker, like the darts, like the pool, particularly in America with cycling. There's a very big circuit in the States. So wherever there's money to be made, that's where you will find more of them.
Do you think they're that cynical?
Of course it's cynical, but it's true. Whether we like it or no, it's true. So what we have to deal with is facts. And what I find very, very frustrating all the time is headlines in the media is trans athletes are banned. Well, trans athletes are not banned. No one is banned from sport.
No.
All you're banned from is the category you don't qualify for. So just like an 18-year-old cannot go in the under 12s, or a heavyweight boxer is not allowed in the bantamweight category, or an able-bodied athlete is not allowed to go into the Paralympics and tie their hands together. We do not allow men to go into women's sport. It's no different. So you're not banned. You're just not you don't qualify.
I'll tell you something.
The darts player is not banned, all right? They're saying they now have to retire. They don't have to retire. They can carry on in the open competition and play against other males. But this person will not win anything there against other males, and that's why they're threatening to retire.
Imagine if Bullseye still existed and they had over 300, and you'll have to have a third category. What does the top sort of trans athlete make in money terms, or the top 10? Are they millionaires?
that's impossible to say because obviously every sport's very different.
No,
I mean,
but to say the top 10 in the world, like golf or whatever, I don't know, would they be millionaires, I suppose?
No. I mean, if you took Luke Lissler, 4.1 million. I was just checking out before I came on the show, 4.1 million. Now, do you think if a woman darts player could win 4.1 million, she wouldn't be doing it, right?
Yeah.
Of course she would. So all the top players, you know, in all of these sports are biologically male. And also some of it is, I guess some of it is cultural and traditional. You know, take things like Formula One again. You know, all the Formula One riders and racers are all men. All make millions and millions of pounds. If women could do it, I'm sure they'd be.
It's because you have to park in the pit.
I just wonder. I'll tell you what I wonder.
Reverse, is that the problem?
When they ask, are trans women really women? The question that I keep asking myself is, are trans women actually trans? Because, you know, without being funny, I looked at Leah Thomas, and the only thing that he appeared to have done is grown his hair and called himself Leah. You know, he was just some big hairy-chested man, right? There wasn't any. I guess my point was there wasn't any real attempt to be feminine in any way at all.
Yeah.
But at least try.
He just looked like what he was. Somebody who'd grown their hair slightly
Like
longer than a normal bloke. Yeah, what was that?
Well, the strongest heavyweight woman can't lift. The strongest
weightlifter.
heavyweight woman can't lift as much as the lightest lightweight man.
That weightlifter looked like Meatloaf. It was true. Yeah. She did.
So up to 2015, that was what the rule was with the IOC. It was that you had to have, you had to have medical intervention. So you would have had to have bits removed. And that's why we saw so very, very few, you know, trans-identifying individuals up to that point. Up to that point, then it changed in 2015. And that's the first time we had Laura Hubbard, which was what you were talking about from weightlifting, who'd been retired from weightlifting for 20 years, right? And came back in the ripe old age of 40, nearly 20 years older than the rest of the field to actually take part. And what people don't forget is that you're not only maybe, you know, taking, a medal or a place in a final away, you're taking the place on the team away. So there was
it goes back in layers. Someone doesn't get to go to the Olympics. He wouldn't have had a chance, but would have had the experience. Yeah.
So there was a young married woman that had been involved in sexual abuse issues, and and she'd found weightlifting, and she was really successful, and she got left at home.
I'll tell you something. Look, this is not as bad an example, but I remember when I was involved in university debating, there was somebody at the University of Cambridge who was a fully qualified US attorney who was doing one semester in Cambridge studying something. And this bloke must have been about 30. And he went into the Cambridge debating squad, and he was entitled to do it, but there was absolute ructions because he's thinking, well, hang on a second, most people in this activity are 18 to 21-year-old undergraduates. To arrive aged 30 as a qualified American lawyer is pretty unfair. So I remember how people felt when they weren't in a competition by somebody they felt, whilst they qualified for the category, ought not to have qualified for the category.
Yeah, I mean, let me just give you a couple of little stats. So the first one, which is quite, mouth-dropping, is that women get 5% of all the money in the world of sport. So we represent 51% of the world's population, and we get 5%. Men get 95% of all the money, and women get 4% of primetime TV time. And although people in the UK think that women's sport is expanding, it's expanding in rugby and football, but it's actually contracting in everything else.
Define contracting. What does that mean?
I mean, the commercial.
I mean, it gets less airtime,
less money,
less kids do it, less
but the
girls.
big
Girls give up sport at 11 and 12 instead of 14 and 15. So trying to get girls, enthusiastic about sport. And another fantastic statistic is that half of the CEOs, female CEOs in America that are successful, came from a sporting background. So what it teaches girls, just like boys, is resilience and strength and target setting. And we're taking that away from girls.
My dad was involved in youth football for a great many years, and none of the kids he coached became famous footballers, though one of them did play for Man United briefly. But they all were noticeably more successful than they would have been otherwise. By the way, my younger brother is now a coach for a girls' football team, and he said, the big advantage is, he said, the dads don't fight on the touchline, because apparently when the sons are playing, they're all very, very concerned. But when the daughters are playing, apparently it's a bit more genteel.
It's not commercial, is it? I mean, women's football is no way as... It's not even 5% the commercial.
No, of course it's not.
But why is it that in tennis, women have got a sort of parity with men? What is it about that? Is it because it's been going on 100 years or something? There seems to be a difference.
Women were banned, weren't they, after the First World War for 50 years, right?
Yeah,
from
that's
football,
right.
Because they were too successful.
It was very popular.
So they had to play catch up. I think in certain sports where we have a men's race and a women's race, it does make a big difference. I mean, I have to say, in the world of swimming, I have never felt like I was discriminated against,
No.
because I raced constantly and trained with the guys. But I would be at the Olympics, and I'd have a women's race and a men's race, and we'd have the same crowd and we'd get the same exposure. So things like
some sports are different than to others.
But let's be honest.
I've always struggled, I think.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. You are pretty famous. I mean, if I was to list, 50 athletes. That off the top of my head, wouldn't I probably list about 40 blokes and 10 women?
Probably, yeah. I mean, if I asked you to name 5 well-known competing women right now in 5 different sports, you'd really struggle.
No, but that's to do with, I don't know if it's the times, but I can name all the old snooker players, darts players, athletes from the 80s. It seems to be a bigger thing, doesn't it? It's like, you can't really know who film stars are these days.
No, but I think there is another thing that we are part of, which is unrelated to what Sharon's talking about, which is the atomisation of the media, right? So when we were kids, we could all go into school and go, oh my God, did you see that thing on the TV last night, and have a reasonable conversation. You can't do that now because there's. But look.
Well, I mean, take things like Grandstand and World of Sport, right? I mean, you watch
Dickie Davies.
It had everything on it. I mean, take Gladiators. When I did Gladiators back in the 90s.
Oh yeah, you were a gladiator.
I was a gladiator.
You were the first celebrity gladiator. Because they weren't celebrities before. You were a celebrity before, weren't you?
Yeah, but we did have people that came from sport, like Judy Simpson was an amazing heptathlete, who was nightshaped.
It's not Sharon Davis, though, is it?
Can I just ask you? We've had loads and loads of callers who want to talk to you very quickly. I don't mean to broadside you, but I know you'd be probably up for it. So Georgina,
she'll be furious.
Georgina in London. Georgina, just talk to Sharon.
Hello, Georgina.
Hi. Well, I've got to say, I'm really worried about this transgender males. Just because you cut your tallywhacker off, put a bit of lipstick on, and stick yourself in a swimsuit doesn't make you a woman.
Shows commitment, though, doesn't it? They don't even have to do that now, apparently.
Well, the thing is, it's really intimidating to little girls, especially in school, when they're having to race or do sports against boys, and it's taking their hope away of ever winning anything.
It's a sexual... It can ruin their lives. If someone flashing at someone, it can actually affect a girl, and surely it can have the same effect in a dressing room.
I'll tell you what, I would weep, Sharon, if my daughter... I don't have a daughter, but if I had one, and she'd been one of these people like you who had spent hours, weeks, months, year after year after year, and then go along to the Olympics or the Commonwealth Games and cannot win, no matter how much she works. And I would, when I see Meatloaf walking off with the medal that my daughter deserved, I'd be absolutely incandescent with rage.
Well, what really worries me as well is these governing bodies over the sport, the sporting governors. Are they that stupid that they don't realise the differences?
It's more sinister, isn't it? They're captured. It's like all the institutions.
Sharon, what is the reason?
Cowardice. So you mentioned earlier on about the fact that the Supreme Court didn't change anything. It just clarified what the law was.
Correct.
What we had was that Stonewall were presenting Stonewall law. So they were misrepresenting the law to all these organisations, to the NHS, to the civil service, to everybody. And everybody was falling foul of this ideology and not following the actual law. And now we're having to try to sort of grapple it back.
But how does somebody who sits on, I don't know what like the British Olympic Committee or whatever, as a female athlete who's got their gold medal, who is able to tell the stories of the Olympic Village in Beijing or whatever, how can those people sit there and kick the ladder of opportunity away for other women. I get the blokes might not give a toss, but what are there no
you get
women
cancelled, don't you? You lose your living.
Do you know the truth is that
achieved their goals.
Yeah, the truth is, the sad truth is, most men have been on the side of fair sport, because they understand, sport. It's liberal women that seem to be giving away women's rights, who I get the most disheartened about. And I have to say, you're right. There has been quite a few, international athletes, women athletes, that are pulling the drawbridge up behind them. I think the reason I speak out was because this happened to my generation with the East Germans, and nobody spoke for us, And
that was hormones in women, was it?
That was it was the same end principle. We were pumping testosterone into young, prepubescent girls in East Germany, who then were coming out and dominating the world of sport in swimming and in rowing and track and field. And, whole generations lost out on their medals. And I just thought, I can't watch this happen all over again.
I mean, at least I know this is an awful thing to say.
And they all look like Jockey Wilson, didn't they?
I mean, I know this is an awful thing to say, because it doesn't matter.
Less hairy.
I suppose if you lose out on a medal, it's cold comfort. But at least the East Germans were cheating. I mean, at least they had the dignity to pretend. Whereas Leah Thomas
the sad truth is that those young girls had no choice, right? And many of those young girls have died.
Because of that treatment.
So they were given horrendous drugs, which had terrible side effects. And it's another reason why I speak out about the whole sort of gender situation, is that, this is not good. Giving cross-sex hormones to young people will end up with making people very ill and will shorten lives. We had, all of these young East German girls have been ill. Many of them have died, and a lot of them have had disabled children. So we know what happens with testosterone to young girls 20, 30 years down the line. We don't need to do that experiment all over again. We really don't.
Do you remember Flojo? She died very young, the 100-metre runner. 36, and there was rumours that it could have been from steroids and stuff.
What would you do with, forgive me if I mispronounced the name, that Caster Semenya? Semenya. Because this is a person who outwardly was born as a woman, believes themselves to be a woman.
Can I explain what happened?
Yes, you can. Go ahead.
It's like the boxer, isn't it?
Caster Semenya is not outwardly born as a female. Caster Semenya is biologically male and was born with a DSD, a difference of sexual development, that only affects males. All right. And it's called 5ARD. And it means that your male genitalia doesn't actually descend, and it just forms internally.
Like that boxer we saw in the final.
Exactly the same. Exactly the same. All right. So these are males, and had they been born in the West, they would have had a blood test, and they would have been told straight away, their parents would have been told straight away that they were male, and they probably would have had some form of surgery to help them.
Right. Okay.
You can see in their faces, though, and their physiques,
but they're biologically 100% male.
I'll tell you something. I'll tell you something. In boxing, there is going to be a one-punch kill if they allow men into women's category, women's category. Because I mean, when I saw that, was it a Peruvian or
Italian, wasn't it? Was it
whoever it was?
The Italian woman was beaten.
That woman melted to her knees. Right, I have to say to you, if I'd have been a woman in the boxing, I would not have got in the ring with that brute, because it was just.
Well, she stopped the fight, saying he was going to kill me. I had to stop.
That somebody in boxing, somebody will die.
A male of equal weight, not heavier, equal weight, will hit 160% harder than a female.
But it's exactly.
You could see that.
Less dense bone structure, less dense ligaments and tendons. I mean, we were genuinely waiting for someone to die, for a woman to die.
It was like a domestic abuse on the Olympics.
I'll tell you what it's very similar to. It's very similar to chimpanzees. People don't realise that the muscle density of a chimpanzee compared to a human is night and day. If a chimpanzee gives you a slap, it's going to take your head
off. You found out the hard way, didn't you? When he was at London Zoo.
But the reality is, if you put a chimpanzee and a human of similar weight into a fight, you're wasting your time. The chimpanzee's muscle density is such.
I'm not sure chimpanzees are as big as humans. Maybe a gorilla.
All right.
Or that could be even worse. You don't want one of them coming at you.
But you're not comparing like for like. I mean, it's similar. It's similar to me attempting to run against a Thompson gazelle, right?
I mean, it's what's really important to say is that I have spent my whole life trying to get people to be involved in sport.
Yes.
You know, one of the things that I want to do about being invited into the House of Lords, right, is to try to get more people to do sport, is to get more girls to do sport, is to get kids to stay involved in sport, to get people more active. You know, I'm really interested in health and fitness and how it affects our mental health. I don't want anyone not to be involved in sport, no matter how you identify. But my stance has always been that women deserve fair sport. You know, women and girls deserve their fair
Has this put off women? Is there less women?
Let me ask that in a slightly different way, because you said earlier that participation amongst women has declined. Yeah. Is this the reason, or can we not say that?
Lots of different reasons. What we find with the sort of transgender situation is that women just remove themselves. So if, for example, you've got a golf match, and the PGA, they will look after the elite, but they don't look after everything else. If you have two clubs that meet, and then you got a local recreational golf lady, and all of a sudden she's having to play a man, she will just leave.
Well, I'll tell you what we found.
If you walk into a changing room, a woman will leave. Yeah. So rather than actually confront the situation, women have been trained to protect themselves, and that's what they do. They just leave.
They could actually get hurt if they're in football, obviously.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what we've tended to find in what we do, where we've got contributors. We tend to find that a lot of the women contributors are better than men, and the reason for that is because, if you like, any man that is interested in contributing on TV and radio is doing it. Whereas actually, a lot of women are quite reluctant. So sort of 20% of the contributors are women, 80% are men. So naturally, if we bring a new woman into the field, she's likely to be the 21st best woman rather than the 81st best man, if you see what I mean, right? But but that demonstrates to me.
You know, we need to engage with young girls, right? We need to find out what it is that they want to do, and maybe they're not, as competitive as young boys, right? That's not unusual. So let's get Zumba classes in. Let's get hairdryers into the changing rooms. Let's try to engage with what will keep girls involved in sport and keep them active. Maybe they don't want to be quite as competitive as lads do. Some girls do, and we need to encourage them and not put them off. But we need to talk about everybody, right? Because ultimately, it's really important for our mental health, but for our physical health, that we look after ourselves and that we understand how we do that.
Well, yeah, but if I was but the reality is, Sharon, if you were my daughter and you were 10 years old, I would strongly advise
That'd be
you.
Weird, wouldn't it?
It would be weird. I would strongly advise you.
I'm probably older than you, so it's very unlikely.
No.
I would strongly advise you to not pursue your interest in sports on the grounds that a fella's going to take your medals off you.
Yeah, I know. It would definitely put you off, wouldn't it? I mean, it would stop you wanting. I trained 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, including Christmas Day, for nearly 20 years to win my medal, and I trained as hard, if not harder, than all the fellas that I was training with. So there was no way I could have done more. There was obviously just going to be difference between me, and a guy. And in swimming, there's the difference of about 10%. 10% in my race would have been nearly a length of the pool.
Yes.
When we win medals by hundredths of a second.
Anyway, look, that was brilliant, Sharon. Keep in touch and let us know all the latest developments on this case, and any other developments in your.
Just let us know anything.
Yeah, just let it know. Don't be a stranger. Come in one night.
I've had a lovely Easter, anyway.
You too. Right, that's Sharon Davis, GB legend. But next, we're going to be talking about that Russian submarine and battleship lurking across the English Channel. Talking to Rear Admiral Chris Parry after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I think we did slightly muck that up, didn't we? Because we had failed to notice that Sharon Davies has been given a seat in the House of Lords, nominated by Kemi Badenoch, and she will be a Conservative peer. When she went,
Baroness Davies.
when she said that, when I'm in the House of Lords, I thought, we have missed the fact that she's been
we should have called her Baroness and curtsied.
So Sharon, who was described as GB legend, is actually a member of the House of Lords.
Yeah.
That shows the quality of the research.
Yeah, but I mean, we're going from a Baroness to a Rear Admiral Doctor. Rear Admiral Chris Parry's going to join us and talk about this, the High Rear Admiral.
Yeah,
You're going to talk about this, the Russians.
We have found a Russian submarine. Now, just to be clear, is it actually a submarine or is it just some bloke called Vladimir in a hollowed-out bottle? Because the quality of the Russian kit is not as sparkling as it used to be, is it?
Well, hi, Andre. Hi, Ash. No, the Russian submarine force is pretty good. They've always been the premier part of the Soviet and the Russian Navy. The unit we're talking about has been in existence since about 1986. They've got all these little submarines that go on the seabed and interfere with cables and do sabotage and things like that. They're very well practiced out of the Northern Fleet. They're used in the Baltic, and their submariners are paid 5 times more than other submariners. So You can tell it's a special forces type of role.
Yeah, but our Defence Secretary, he said, well, the thing is, we didn't stop them, but they saw us looking at them and they'll be embarrassed. But that's not what they were doing. Putin was going, look at us, you can't do anything about it. Look how weak you are. Isn't that what was really happening?
You're absolutely right, Ash. I mean, the thing is, they've been doing this for a long time. They did it during the Cold War. They've basically been doing it ever since. So it's no surprise to those of us who are in the business. You're absolutely right. It's pretty feeble. What we used to do during the Cold War is we used to drop little explosive charges on them just to remind them we were there. They're £1 scare charges. They only make a big crack like a cracker, really. I used to tape 10 of them together to make sure they really heard what we were doing.
But that'd be terrifying in a submarine, wouldn't it?
Well, it would certainly wake them up. That's for sure.
I was watching a documentary about RAF Collinsby. Could you give us a sense of what Russia does, if you like, to test our defences? Because I hadn't realised until I watched this documentary, there is a constant process of Russia attempting to identify, blind spots, weaknesses, whether it be in the air, whether it be at sea, whether it be under the water. Just give us a sense of how that kind of works.
Well, it is. Most of the activity takes place in the Baltic and used to take place in the Black Sea because the Russians are really sensitive about that. And right now you're seeing a lot of that going on in the Baltic. You're also seeing it up in the Barents Sea off Norway and places like that. And the Russians, because they live in a country that's sort of 10 time zones wide, are very sensitive about their borders, particularly at sea. Now, what they do is they constantly probe defences by air and by sea to see where, as you say, Andre, where the weak points are. But during the Cold War, this was really intense. So we used to have their submarines trying to get into the Clyde, for example, to try and sniff out our ballistic missile submarines. They're constantly trying to trail our Trident submarines when they're on deployment. And right now they're going after our undersea infrastructure. That wasn't very sophisticated, of course, in the Cold War. It is now.
Have they done any damage to our cables, internet cables or anything like that?
They might have done, yeah. I mean, what they tend to do is they park a civilian vessel over the top, it drops anchor, and then, oops, accidentally we dragged our anchor over the cable. That's happened quite a lot in the Baltic so far. They're also sniffing around to the west of Ireland. The Irish have a really feeble presence at sea. They're trying to get better, but they pretty much do what they like to the west of Ireland. And there's 75% of North Atlantic cables go through Irish territorial seas or start in Ireland. That shows you how vulnerable it is.
Is it true? Because, myths go round, and forgive me if this is stupid, but somebody said to me, Scotland is talking about becoming independent. I don't think it'll happen, but if they do, they want to shut down Faz Lane. Now, I got told that if you were to put British nuclear submarines in Portsmouth, it would render them far less effective because there's only one there's only two ways you can go out of the English Channel, whereas at Faslane there's sort of multiple different options to get out of British territorial waters. And somebody said to me that in practice relocating from Faslane to Portsmouth is just not a non-starter, and an independent, if you like, an independent England would probably not bother with a nuclear submarine fleet at all.
No, well, I think, Andre, what would happen there is you'd have a look at Milford Haven in Wales,
right,
which has got deep water access, or you look at Falmouth. It costs an awful lot to do that. What I suspect will happen is our ballistic missile submarines will go to Kings Bay in Georgia in the United States, where the American SSBNs are, which is a good reason why we really shouldn't be telling President Trump we really don't like him at the moment, because we might need them. They'd have to go to Kings Bay.
I've got to be honest with you. We've said this on the programme before. I appreciate you're busy, so you might not watch it all the way through. But
I'm in Germany at the moment.
But my argument is this, and once again, forgive me if I'm wrong, and please do pull me up. Look. America and Russia are only a few miles apart, if you think of it the other way round on the map. But the vast majority of the Soviet population is in Europe, not Siberia, not Vladivostok. So when the Soviet Union was a major threat to the United States of America, there was an argument for all these NATO troops in Europe. I think the argument for NATO now is it's a global alliance. Or is it? Because I think if NATO turns around and says we're not willing to help America with its strategic objectives in the Middle East, I don't see why you should man Ramstein. Who cares? I mean, I'm not saying that because I want to be negative about European security, but I just don't see why a kid in Alabama should run around Estonia if the Estonians are not going to help with the Straits of Hormuz.
Yeah, Andre, the issue is that NATO is a defensive alliance. The campaign in Iran, of course, is a fairly offensive one against Iran.
But it's for defence reason, isn't it? It's because of nuclear development.
Yeah, in the long term, you can actually say that. But here's the key question, though, guys. Let's just take Iran out of the equation. What if, for example, China attacked the United States in Guam, in the Pacific? Yeah. Okay, America's a member of NATO.
Yes.
Okay, outside the NATO area. So by Article 5, NATO would be committed to actually helping America in that situation. Yeah. That hasn't come up yet, but it's absolutely very valid in what we're talking about here. Because, as you say, Andre, these things in the Pacific are a lot closer. So, the question has to be asked: if America gets attacked in its offshore territories in the Pacific, are we going to come to their...
Well, what use would we be anyway? But another question I'd like to ask you, because you were obviously at the Falklands in '82, would we be able to defend them now? I know we've got good defensive stuff around it, but we haven't got a navy. If Argentina wanted to take it, could they? And we wouldn't be able to stop them, would we?
Well, I don't know. We've got enough to deal with Argentina at the moment. We've got 4 typhoons down there. We've got troops and things like that. It's going to be an amphibious operation. The key thing is, Ash, if we lost them, though, we couldn't get them back.
Yes.
Do we really need them, though?
I think
we do. Actually, we need them. We need them.
Strategically, you mean?
I mean, primarily, there are 2,800 people there who are British who want to stay British. That's the first.
And there's oil under there, apparently. A lot of oil under there.
They've been trying to get that for 20 years.
But maybe fracking they'll be able to.
They're drilling now in the sea line.
Rockhopper, isn't it? Yeah, Rockhopper.
I have to say to you, I think we've disgraced ourselves recently, haven't we, with the state of our Navy. I feel very sorry for the sailors because obviously
you must be embarrassed.
They're working incredibly hard. Yeah. But I mean, it was obvious we couldn't get one ship on the go.
Let me tell you guys, on the 2nd of April 1982, when Argentina invaded the Falklands, my ship was off Gibraltar with 12 others. We were 95% stocked for war before they invaded. We went alongside another ship, spent 4 hours stocking up. We were 104% stocked for war, and we sailed with 10 other ships in 6 hours. Okay, that's where we've fallen off. I'm afraid to say the country has taken it for granted. We've had people who think that peace is going to be forever, and we've got a strategy of wishful thinking. And I'm afraid to say, I used to say when I was in the Navy, one day our bluff is going to be called if we take all this risk.
But were you not one of the people, and if you weren't, fair enough, who in 1990, there was a great sense that this was the end of history. Adolf Hitler had been defeated in 1945. The Soviet Union had gone. China was reasonable, if you want to put it another way. I think there was a sense that the world had changed, and you know, there was never going to be any future conflict. I mean,
the peace dividend.
Were you totally cynical, or was there part of you that went along with that delusion?
I'm a historian, Andre, okay, and in the Ministry of Defence in the 1990s, I said this Francis Fukuyama business, the end of history, is an absolute codswallop. Okay, history doesn't change, national cultures don't change, and I'm afraid human nature doesn't change. I was swimming against the political and also the other sort of tide at the time. And the reason that I didn't make First Sea Lord is I kept on saying it. It's as simple as that.
It's a great shame, because I think I've been told, I had a friend of mine who was what do they describe him as, a civilian analyst at Portsmouth Naval Base, which I don't know exactly what that is, but I think I can guess roughly in the area. But what he said was, very often the ships patrolling around the United Kingdom have very little munitions anyway, and actually
they're just there to pick up migrants.
Yeah, they're just sailing around.
Guys, this all starts with Tony Blair, I'm afraid. Yeah. I'm going to lay it firmly at his door. Yeah. And then you had a defence review in 2010, which I absolutely hammered in the Daily Telegraph. I said, we've got politicians in the shape of Cameron and Osborne who know the price of everything and the value of nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid to say that's what's happened to our armed forces since 2010.
Anyway, look, we've got to go, but before you go, Rear Admiral Dr. Chris Parry, can you tell us in about 30 seconds what's the future at the Straits of Hormuz, when they're going to get moving? Because I'm looking at the data, they're still not moving, the ships are not getting through.
The problem is you've got in Iran at the moment, you've got no government to deal with. It's broken down into factions, and the Americans are desperately trying to get the factions to cooperate to open the Straits of Hormuz. The Americans can, if they choose, open the Straits of Hormuz by force and hold them open by force. The problem is they've got a carrier that's off station at the moment, and the one carrier that's there, the Abraham Lincoln, is having to do all the work. I suspect when the second carrier comes back, you'll see a difference.
Excellent. Thank you there, Rear Admiral Chris Parry. You have to come in one night. It's Talk with Andre and Ash. That was brilliant. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is Talk. I've got to tell you, I haven't got the extension cable for my earpiece, and the whole thing's fallen to bits.
Oh, so, no.
There we go.
There's the extension cable.
Yeah, I think you've got a good idea. What can we say in these couple of minutes? Let's get the calls in. 0344 499 1000. I'm really interested if you're worried about the state of the British military. I mean, we did disgrace ourselves with HMS Dragon. Couldn't manage to get couldn't get it moving.
We did some military manoeuvres with Europe because that's our new military partners for some reason. They're weak as anything. And we had to borrow a ship off Germany just to take part. How embarrassing. I mean, we really are weak. And Trump comparing Starmer to Chamberlain is actually an insult to Chamberlain, because Chamberlain, actually, people forget, he did declare war on Hitler. He said, if you do this, going to Poland, we declare war. And that's what he did. He's actually done an Obama, who said the red line in Syria, if you're going to drop, poisonous gas on citizens, innocent civilians, then you're crossing a red line, and he bottled it. So we see who the bottlers are. So he's worse. He's more spineless than Chamberlain. Chamberlain, did actually declare war. People think Churchill did, but it was Chamberlain. Then obviously he had to go.
I mean, borrowing the ship off Germany, it's not even a particularly big navy.
I mean, we sank their navy just after World War One. I think it was in Loch Ness. We sank. No, they sank their own navy. We captured it, and they scuppered their own navy. And to this day, that steel is cherished because it's not affected by radiation, because it was done before nuclear power was made. So it's used in surgical instruments. They go down. It's very valuable.
Do you know something,
German pure steel.
Do you know something, Asher? That is the very statistic I was going to tell you.
Were you?
I was going to tell you that.
I told you that.
We've discovered, Asher and I have discovered something, that our YouTube algorithm
I knew that before YouTube.
Suggests
Don't worry about that. I heard it on Paul Ross.
Suggests the same videos, doesn't it? So we end up going,
it does, yeah.
I saw something on YouTube the other day.
Yeah, they do that. It's cunning as well. And you talk about things, and it then recommends things, which is why I always put it off by talking about things I don't like. Like, I'll say when I'm walking around the room and Alexa's on, I go, I must get more of that fishing tackle for that fishing trip, and then I'll see if it starts recommending
Yeah, I've done that. Have you tried that thing where you just go, cats, cat food, and then see whether Google...
No, I'll try that, man.
Whether Google starts advertising cat food or not.
But anyway, 0344 499 1000. We're going to be taking all your calls. We've got Pete Barnes coming in to talk about... Phil Dave is coming in, not Pete Barnes. Is Pete Barnes not coming in?
No, it's just we spent
it's the papers, isn't it?
We spent that long with Sharon Davies, which I make no apology for. I thought it was brilliant.
Baroness Davies.
So we just
Rear Admiral Chris Parry.
We biffed Pete Barnes.
But it's fantastic. But now it's all about your calls. And Phil Dave, from down the local, coming in and looking at tomorrow's papers today like a futurist. So 0344 499 1000 if you want to talk about anything. Have you want to talk about anything this week?
By the way, people were saying that, or somebody's been saying that... that if you don't allow people to transition, then that's going to risk them committing suicide. There is no evidence to say that people's mental health improves when they transition. But
there is the other way around. When you have to take drugs and you've basically got an open wound, and a lot of people have killed themselves after because it's irreversible. You become sterile and you lose a lot of sexual function. So there is a lot to say on the other side, but of course that's not spoken about a lot.
No, that's not ideal at all, that dilating thing. Ugh.
Well, yeah, and also hairs growing inside that were on the outside because they use, and it gives you infection problems. So all that horrific stuff that happens, and also, taking hormones the whole of your life for it is carcinogenic in some cases.
I don't understand why somebody says you've got to accept me for what I am, and then has gender reassignment.
You wouldn't say that to someone who's got anorexia, would you, or someone like that? 0344 499 1000. But remember, Dave's coming in. Phil Dave with tomorrow's front pages. Get your calls in. And
can I ask you a question, Asher? Is my hair ridiculous?
Your hair? No,
I think it needs to be.
It's better than ever.
It needs to be chopped, doesn't it?
No, it is. Yeah.
It's
ridiculous. But see what it is. It might be different after the break. Let's see if we can give him a quick hairdo. It's Talk with Andre and Ash. We'll be back after the latest news.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Dave.
Phil Dave.
Dave.
Dave's here.
They've named the kid
By the way,
Phil after Dave.
Our finger's on down the local, the one we did with
From Grand Lodge.
Yeah.
with
That was a nice.
Hinton, Tertus Hinton.
Yeah, it was quite a good episode, actually, if I say so myself. I quite like that bit, not to give too much away. By the way, Down the Local now available on YouTube, and if you
I thought it was Down Your Local.
No, Down the Local.
Right.
Yeah,
Not
as in like
your
you're down the local.
Yeah.
All right.
Down the local, like Chaz and
Exactly,
Dave.
yeah, down the local. Anyway, so this particular episode, what I particularly enjoyed was the way that when we recorded the introduction to it, so I don't want to give too much away because they'll see it, hopefully, if you can watch it now on the YouTube channel.
No, not now.
Well, not now, the second, obviously, but maybe after 1 a.m. or something.
Yeah.
You know, the entrance, what was it? There was the Grand Hall or whatever it was.
Yeah, yeah.
That was nice, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
it was a bit like a
Illuminati.
synagogue, really.
Yeah, it was very much like a synagogue.
The slight problem with saying it was a bit like a synagogue is presumably the largest percentage of the audience have been in neither a Masonic temple nor a synagogue.
That's very true.
Therefore, that's not going to be that.
All right, I tell you what. Then here's the best way of describing it. Think of it like a church, but with comfortable seats.
Yeah, that's sort of like
Yeah,
like a
it was
theatre,
like
but
that.
with a sort of ceremonial sort of throne at the top.
Yes, there was almost something a bit Roman-y about it, really, like sort of like in the auditorium.
There must have been so obviously Freemasonry is non-political, but there must have been a fair few right-wingers there because it was the day of the Essex annual meeting.
Yes.
So
I don't want to give anything away.
I suspect the Essex. I suspect whilst they're not partisan as a group, I suspect there are precious few left-wingers in the Essex Freemasons.
Well, you know what, though? To be fair, we got a good range of views. It certainly wasn't one-sided, but that's what I love about
So tell
Down
us what the show is.
Sorry, yeah. So I'm just very presumptuous here. I'm just assuming that people.
Yeah,
have seen
everyone
it,
knows what it is.
But Down the Local is basically the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, and we speak to punters about the subjects that are driving us all a bit crackers at the moment. So it could be anything from potholes to potentially doctor's appointments to possibly even school places, whatever it may be, even something as trivial as supermarket self-checkouts, you know, all of these things.
And we
discuss.
drink beer while it's happening.
Yeah, we have a couple of cheeky pints, so obviously drink responsibly. And
Oh, I thought you said that you paid the bill.
I do.
So, no, we all done a runner.
Well,
I
what's
thought
wrong with
we all
that?
did a runner.
You did not pay the bill.
What do you mean?
I paid the bill.
Oh yeah, no, you pay. No, you did very kindly pay the bill for
I
that
didn't very
episode.
kindly pay the bill.
What do you mean?
put,
did it not- I didn't want to pay the
You
bill.
put all the drinks on my tab.
No, I did. I said I went up to pay afterwards, and they said no, it's been sorted.
Very
That's
kind,
what they
very
told
kind
me.
of you.
I'm very happy to give you the money back, but you know, if I'm declare it right here live on air. But I genuinely, they said it had been sorted, so I assumed that was you.
0344499.
Who should pay the bill for Down the Local? There you go.
I think, given that you have very kindly been to two venues I'm associated with, I think you bought the drinks at the first one, and I can buy the drinks at the second.
Well, that's very kind of you, thank you. But I would still very gladly do
Diplomacy. You see, you should have been up in Iran sorting this out. It would have sorted it. Anyway, the papers.
Oh yeah, here for the papers.
The Daily Mirror. We see you, Vlad, as if that's the great thing we did. He wanted to be seen. He was taking the mick out of our lack of defence, our terrible. I mean, he just sent a warship over, thinking we wouldn't see him. It's pathetic how they're trying to spin it that we caught them doing it when they were openly doing it to take the mick out of us.
I love the way the embassy always denies stuff that's blatantly true.
I just think it's too funny for. I mean, if it wasn't so serious, it would be hysterical. But the truth is that we know our armed forces are not where they should be, and we know that we can also blame successive governments for that. It's not just on the Labour Party.
Start with Tony Blair, Rear Admiral Chris Parry said.
Yeah, no, totally and utterly. Successive governments have really failed our armed forces big time because they're under the delusion that because we live in inverted commas peacetime, yeah, right, because we live in peacetime, it was something that was just a nice little optional extra, and therefore we didn't need it. And shock horror, we need it.
But I look at the performance of Israel recently, and I just think to myself, you know, the state of our military now, and you look at Israel has spent decades properly investing, properly building capability. I just don't think you're going to be able to wave a magic wand and resolve the problems with the British military. You get the sense with the Israelis that they've put some real thought, real money.
Well, it's built on war, isn't it, Israel? Since its inception, it's had to be at war. But this country now, I wouldn't blame kids for saying I'm not fighting for Starmer.
Well, so here's the thing. The reason why I blame that slightly is because I understand the attitude of when people say, "Oh, I won't fight for Labour, I won't fight for Starmer."
Why would you fight for this country in the state it is?
Well, I tell you why you'd fight for this country is because you don't fight for what it is at the moment. You fight for what it could become, and there's one heck of a difference.
I mean,
so
I
don't think it is going to. Is it going to?
The reality is,
you die for it.
In most wars in Britain, awful governments have been swept out of the way, right, in favour of more sense. I mean, the one good thing about Brexit, remember, was when the Europeans were going, Britain can't run itself, it's got to stay in the EU. I thought they were making a point about, general principle. I hadn't realised they were actually saying, we've met the people in Westminster and they're crap.
Yeah, well, I mean, the way I look at it is that the Great War started with Chamberlain, it ended with Churchill. Do you know what I mean? So actually,
Second World War.
Yeah, just because we've got a situation with one particular PM now, it doesn't mean that.
Yeah, but Chamberlain started the war, as I was saying earlier. It wasn't Churchill.
That's what I'm saying. So it was.
Keir Starmer's not like that man, though, is he?
He's
not a man of honour like Chamberlain was.
Well, I don't know. I think
resembles the weakness of Chamberlain, I'd say.
No, but Chamberlain wasn't weak. He did declare war. He said if you do that, you don't just declare war. You say, well, if you do this, like going to Poland, then war is declared, and that's exactly what he did.
He had to.
He didn't necessarily have the strategy to get through it.
Well, no, that's why Churchill had to come in. But he did actually do. He didn't do the Obama red line thing and bottle it.
Look,
like
I
Starmer has.
The point I'm trying to make is that when one fights, you don't fight for your Prime Minister. You possibly would fight for King and Country, but
would you? I mean, the King and Country as it is, and the country, is it your country? You'd be fighting for people who hate this country. You'd be defending people in this country who hate us.
Well, maybe as things stand at the moment, but what I'd find really interesting is that if it was all hands on deck and the country had to go to war...
You think it would bring us together?
I think it would bring those who truly love Britain together, and those who hate it, it would rise absolutely... They would rise to the surface. I think that it would be very easy to turn around and say, right, you're not prepared to fight for it, would then be prepared not to live
there
here
you see,
either.
Phil Dave there, he wants a war. He thinks it would be good for us.
I just think
I think we're in one, whether we like it or not.
I think we might be in World War III already, but not quite knowing it. Yeah,
I think the big problem that we've got now is if you look at the Second World War. There was a great degree of unity in the United Kingdom. I think if there was a war with almost any country now, there would be a significant number of people who are on the side of the enemy.
As we're seeing.
But that's because we've allowed so many sleepers in here. That's the problem.
If we went to war with Iran, let's be honest, Bradford would be relatively sympathetic to Iran.
Well, we're seeing it already.
It's very simple. It's basically because that we've never addressed the small boat crisis for what it actually is, and the truth is, it is a consistent invasion. Right,
but we're bringing in the invaders.
Yes,
we're
totally
actually our government is bringing them in.
The problem you've got is that people are too terrified to say that. They think, oh, it's going to make you racist. No, it's not racist. It's a fact. If you are letting a bunch of individuals who you have no idea who they are and where they come from into your country illegally, they are invading your country, and therefore that's what it is.
And by definition, they're not going to be the best people, as they are committing a criminal offence when they break in.
Totally and utterly. I mean, at the very least, they're breaking the law from paying.
And it magically absolves them of the crime. They declare asylum, and magically they're not a criminal anymore.
Now, Stephen has been in touch to say, I appreciate that you've got all your front pages, but really this press preview ought to focus significantly on the Melania Jeffrey Epstein thing. So Melania Trump, as you know, has taken to the airwaves and she has publicly denied that she had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. She has publicly denied that she was close to Ghislaine Maxwell, and she has publicly denied that Epstein introduced her to Donald Trump. I've got to be honest with you, I never really thought that she would be close to Epstein, but she's felt the need to do this, Phil. I mean, one of the things that worries me about Jeffrey Epstein is in America they just seem to be going round in circles. They've not really managed to work out what his background was. They haven't really managed to work out, which countries he was working for. Was he a Russian intelligence agent? Was he in Mossad? I don't like the Mossad thing, by the way, because he's got no connection with Mossad other than he's a Jew, right? So
and Ghislaine Maxwell's dad was allegedly an asset.
But there's no particular reason to believe that he's got any connection.
And Mossad aren't clumsy like that.
I was going to say, to be perfectly honest with you, if he was true Mossad, it wouldn't come to light. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I can't work out whether Mossad are the best or the worst, because they always get caught, don't they?
No, very rarely do they get caught.
I don't really think of them as ever getting caught. And
they have been once.
If they get caught, it'll be probably more by design than by accident. So it's just,
they did get caught once in Jordan, squirting something into a man's ear that was going to kill him, and they had to give him the antidote because they caught them. But very rarely did they get caught. I mean, they were caught on camera in Emirates, weren't they, when they killed that Hamas leader in the hotel room, which mysteriously was
I didn't like when they used fake British passports. I was a bit annoyed about that. But then again, I don't know how many other intelligence services steal each other's passports.
Might have been real
I understand
passports.
what you're saying, but at the same time, what if Britain actually benefited from the use of those fake passports?
Anyway, I've got no idea, and I don't want to be critical of them, because I suspect lots of people use fake passports in the intelligence service.
We've got a little clip of Melania. She says, obviously...
Melania?
Yeah, Melania, isn't it?
Melania.
Melania, you know, it depends. Tomato. No, it
doesn't.
It depends where you come from. In Birmingham, everyone calls her Melania. Let's have a look at what she said earlier.
Lies linking me with the disgraceful Jeffrey Epstein need to end today. The individuals lying about me are devoid of ethical standards, humility, and respect. I do not object to their ignorance, but rather I reject their mean-spirited attempts to defame my reputation. I never been friends with Epstein. Donald and I were invited to the same parties as Epstein from time to time, since overlapping in social circles is common in New York City and Palm Beach. I am not Epstein's victim. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump. I met my husband by chance at a New York City party.
So, I mean, let's be clear. She's absolutely furious.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, who could blame her? Because if what she says is true, why on earth would you want to be associated with Epstein?
But I mean, all right, but everyone in America's been associated with him. I mean,
that's sort of what she's saying. She's saying, oh, we went to the same parties.
See, I think what annoys me...
They don't seem capable of working out who was a genuine associate of Jeffrey Epstein and who was a bloke he'd seen down the pub.
Yeah, you can see who his mates are when Clinton's in, you know, the jacuzzi with him and Andrew's there and Mandelson's just standing there in his pants. That's obviously a bit more suspect than just meeting him at a party.
But what annoys me with all of this, though, is I don't really care who was friends with him. What I care about is what did they know.
Yes.
That's what annoys me. I couldn't give a hoot, because I dare say there are people in this world who we've possibly had as either acquaintances or friends who maybe turn out not to be who you thought they were in the first place. That happens. That's life. That happens every day. But what has really irritated me with all of this Epstein saga is who knew what. And the truth is, we're never going to know the truth. I mean, that's what.
I mean, actually, and I think that is a reasonable point, because when they say, "Oh, Andre Walker knows Phil Dave very well," do I really? I don't, you know, I've not been to your house. I don't know if you've got...
We've been in a pub with him now a couple of times, haven't we?
I don't know if you've got a wife or anything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's got 3 kids.
I don't, and that is a big difference. And I think it was slightly unfair when you've got
divorced twice.
You've got people who might have been at a dinner party with Jeffrey Epstein being compared to people who literally jumped on. I mean, why on earth the Lolita Express? Can you imagine if somebody said to you, "Do you want to get a plane nicknamed the Lolita Express?"
It's a bit like the Jimmy Savile in open. You know, doing it in the open is sort of almost like a defence mechanism.
Well, yeah, it's hiding in plain sight, isn't
exactly,
it?
Yeah.
But
literally in plain sight.
Yeah, no, I know. But so here's the thing: it's not so much about just because someone knew someone, it doesn't mean that they were complicit in what they were doing, and that's what I think people need to be very careful.
Well, they said that about Jimmy Savile, did they? They said all these celebrities knew about it but did nothing. I mean, they banned Jimmy Savile from their children's charities, so they obviously knew something. You know, what's it called, Red Nose Day or Comic Relief?
The Comic Relief stuff. Yeah, but at the same time, even if you know something, if you don't have proof, what are you supposed to do with that?
I think that is
I mean, again, I would never, ever, obviously, defend anything that the likes of Epstein or Savile got up to. Of course, so who the heck in their right mind would? But what I'm trying to get at is that
You've got proof.
We're very quick to find blame in others who are probably blameless.
Can I ask you then, in that case, and I know it's from last week, the Scott Mills thing. So one thing I want to be clear about with Scott Mills, there was a full police investigation into something that happened 30 years ago, and he was rightly or wrongly exonerated. Now I can't predetermine the police investigation. I have to assume the police did their job, and the Crown Prosecution Service haven't prosecuted because the case was not proven. However, there is an important caveat. It is said that when he was 22, he had a relationship with a 16-year-old, which was legal, but the BBC found that to be unacceptable. Would you have sacked him for that?
Well, I guess that there are many circumstances one has to consider. As you say, by law, it's legal. Whether or not would you find it morally acceptable, I'd certainly question it. I'd find it a bit strange, if I'm honest. I think I don't really understand why someone would do that.
It is the slightly odd thing about the age of consent being under the age of 16 is you can legally date a child, right? Because a 16 and 17-year-old is a child, but they're above the age of consent.
Oh no, from that point of view, I get that completely. But in terms of your question of would you fire, I don't know all the details. So
would they fire
if, for example,
a heterosexual couple? Would they fire if there was a boy who's 21 and a girl who's 16? I don't think that would be seen as bad at all.
Maybe, but let's look at it this way. We simply don't know how it came about. So in other words, could it be, and please note that I don't know this at all, I'm just using this as a hypothesis here. What happened if, for example, that 16-year-old at the time was, say, a 15-year-old who was on work experience at the BBC, and that's how they met? Suddenly, then it doesn't sound as acceptable, right? I don't know.
I mean, yeah, precisely.
So when you look at it like that,
it's still legal as long as there's no sexual activity.
But what you're saying actually potentially does cause you a bit of a grey area, because then the age of consent does kind of vary based on if you're in a position of responsibility over the person. And rightly so.
It then suddenly means that if you are in that position where you are, if you like, the child is in your care, then under the age of 18 is enough. I just don't understand why anyone in their right mind would actually go down that path of complexity. You know, there are, sorry to be crass, but there are plenty of fish in the sea, and I find it quite extraordinary that anyone behaved like that.
I've got to be totally honest.
Seen the price of cod lately?
When I worked in the House of Commons, I just couldn't understand why people would go on the pull at work. And you think, surely this is the worst place to go on the pull. It's mind you, there was an outbreak of chlamydia at the House of Commons Sports and Social Club.
Well, I suppose that the answer to something like that would be probably based on if you work in an unusual environment, an unusual workplace, such as the Commons, and let's be honest, in this building as well, we keep very odd hours. We're crying out loud. We're on radio at 11:20 at night. Most people are getting ready for bed. So I think that when you work with others who share your experience, then you automatically have a connection with them, don't you? And that, I suppose, is one hurdle overcome.
I suppose that's right. I mean, I always think that this is a place of work. And I
couldn't go down that route myself.
I just think, you know, and I've made this, and I don't say this in order to be crass. I'm making a serious point. If one of our presenters said to Denny Morris, the boss of this channel, oh, you know, after work I like nothing better than inviting four 14-year-old girls into the dressing room to have a few drinks, it should just be removed from the building, right? There wouldn't be.
The police would be called.
I was going to say, I'd like to think we'd do a bit more than just that.
There wouldn't be any. It never crossed our mind that was odd. You know, there wouldn't be any.
Well, it's 16-year-old though, as you said. Anyway,
no, that's not the one with Scott Mills. Right. The roughest one of them all is when you look at Philip Schofield. So he's the chairman of a drama school in Manchester. He meets a 12-year-old, but only starts dating him when he's 18. Well, in that case, hey, I mean, that is rough, isn't it?
But this is the whole thing. I think that we're very quick to judge these cases without knowing the full story, and that's why I've sort of been quite on the fence with the whole Scott Mills thing. It's not that I condone the sort of activity that allegedly he's been up to. It's more that I don't know everything about that particular incident.
I've got to be honest with you. We don't know all the details, but
I'm not so sure I want to know.
But
all
I
the details
struggle.
Either, by the way.
I struggle to think in my own mind why you would want to talk about something 30 years ago. I mean, he's been cleared of criminality, so it's not
that
illegal.
we can agree with. Yeah.
Anyway, we got to take a little breaky. 03444991000. We've got loads more of tomorrow's papers. We're delving into the future, looking at that. But after midnight, we're going to be taking your call. 03444991000. You can leave us a WhatsApp voice message on that as well. But Phil Dave's here from down the local, going through the papers. We'll be back after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
So I don't want to hog the comments from Stephen, but
you're going to try.
But he's saying he's asking a question, which we would call in journalism running the spike, which is that you announce a negative story before the press does. He's suggesting, is Melania expecting a bit of a stinker to come out in this weekend's press? Because normally, let's be honest with you, if you're saying something Thursday afternoon, it means the Sunday papers have been on the phone, doesn't it?
Maybe. Well, there is.
Do they have a Sunday paper thing?
Not as much.
I don't know as much, but I mean, look, there must be a reason why she has chosen.
Because people are talking about it, and so she's nipping it in the bud.
But so what, though? Let them talk.
Yeah, because now she said that.
If there's nothing to hide, who cares?
Because people were speaking rumours. So now that she's come out and said this, she'll know the press will be delving in to see if there's anything, and if she knows there's nothing to find, it sort of helps her case, doesn't it?
I guess so, but I mean, I know it sounds a bit wrong, but I'm not so sure I care enough.
I think she's just been hurt personally by it. I think she's taken it.
Really clear. When I say I don't care, I care more about the victims of Epstein than I do whether or not those celebs who think they might be associated.
But I think the whole thing's connected. You know, in her book, what is it? Nobody's Girl or Nowhere Girl, whatever it is. What's her name? Virginia Roberts Giuffre said that Donald Trump had found out about what Jeffrey Epstein was up to because she told him, and he threw him out of Mar-a-Lago as a result. But if you watch the BBC and if you watch Channel 4, they still describe Epstein as Trump friend. Right, they don't say in a jacuzzi with Bill Clinton. I will tell you, the reason why that book got no publicity in the UK is because it talked about Clinton and not Donald Trump. The British media cannot bring themselves
Well, we
to
saw the
accept.
BBC, what they did with that edit with Trump. He's now suing them for the ridiculous editing.
I mean, the
saying goes, why let a fact get in the way of a good story?
But the BBC, it's a disgrace.
But I will tell you,
Disgrace.
the fact that Bill Clinton was close to Epstein, I challenge you to watch the BBC. I challenge you to watch ITV. I challenge you to watch Channel 4 and hear it's ever mentioned. And yet,
It's just a challenge to watch any of those channels now, anyway.
The man who throws him out of Mar-a-Lago basically gets the blame. And now they're saying he introduced you to your wife.
But that's the upside down world that we live in, because you look at what's going on in the Middle East at the moment, people are blaming Trump for the situation in Iran. No, how about blaming the fundamentalist regime that took over Persia? That's probably a better place.
And they also keep saying how they're doing so badly, and actually they've destroyed their Navy, Air Force.
This is what's so stupid. They're not at all. Exactly.
Well, it's the Trump derangement syndrome. The FT oil prices spike above $100 a barrel as shut straight, strange, fragile ceasefire. I've been looking at the Strait. There's absolutely on real-time data. It's like flight radar. There's no ships going through. There's none of our ships there. No American. It's all Chinese, and even they're not daring to go through. And they're their mates, because obviously the insurance companies are saying, no, there could be some rogue element. It's sort of all fractured there, so you don't know who's going to sink one of the ships.
By the way,
I wonder if anyone had ever heard of Hormuz before this happened.
I heard of hummus. I thought there was going to be a hummus drought, but thank God.
I have to say to you, OpenAI, it's a con, isn't it?
OpenAI puts Stargate UK data centre project on ice in sovereign AI setback. The thing is with AI is there's billions and trillions of dollars, and they're not bringing in the business to manage it, and they're buying chips in advance that will be obsolete in about 2-3 years, and the data center energy systems, and also this universal income, they're not going to be able to pay everyone a universal. So what's going on, Dave? You must know what it's still,
interesting.
Dave.
If you look at OpenAI's 120 billion in investment, sounds marvellous, but actually a lot of it was cloud servers supplied by Microsoft. A lot of it was money from Nvidia. Literally, Nvidia invests in OpenAI so they can buy Nvidia chips, and AWS, which is Amazon Web Services, basically who have a vested interest in AI working. The big problem is precisely what Asher said about OpenAI. All this investment they're making will be worthless in 3 years.
Well, there must be a reason, and I don't think if you look at sort of like
because there's a race between China and America and Russia. You know what I mean?
But if you look at the likes of Altman, who's behind obviously OpenAI, or certainly founding OpenAI, and I don't think that the guy is a fool by any stretch of the imagination. And you look at the success of, say, ChatGPT, which of course is OpenAI's most successful product. I don't think anyone could accuse them of not knowing what they're doing per se. But
they literally don't know how it's working now.
But it is the same with the likes of Elon Musk. People can call Musk what they want, but the guy is a genius.
But
but he's saying there's a 20% chance that it will kill all of humanity, even the stuff that he's doing. They're just taking the shackles off and not bothering with safety because it's a race, and so it's very. They're all saying there's a chance this could be existential to humans. So, and it's not that low.
It could be, but it might not. So.
Yeah, but they're giving chances like 20% and things like that. That's serious.
On that front, there's also a chance that Iran is a threat.
Yeah, but
to
why
humanity.
should 5 businessmen decide on the future of humanity without any regulation?
Why should anyone decide?
But isn't there?
They can't.
I mean, let's be clear what the business model is for all of these AI companies. I'm not being critical of this, but it means that most people investing in AI will lose all their money, and the reason is this: because they're basically saying, look, the asset that we are chasing is being the predominant AI power in the world, right? And that is going to, they say that will come from artificial general intelligence, which they believe somebody will achieve in the next couple of years. But if that proposition is correct, that means that everyone else who does not get there first are all going to lose everything.
Whoever gets there first wins, and then eventually the machine wins and everybody loses.
I don't know the future any more than you guys do, but all I can say is that my experience of AI so far has been relatively positive. I mean, don't get me wrong, I appreciate there are a couple of hiccups along the way. We all know the revolting stuff that happened with some of those chats. What's it called? The AI image generators. Sorry, with some of those AI image generators, we know that the revolting
I've got to be honest. when these AI chatbots turn nasty, I do find it quite funny.
Yeah, look, I believe.
I mean, the one that they gave Mein Kampf to and taught it to be.
It was racist, wasn't it? It became racist.
It was just
that Kanye West. Kanye West.
It was just a big racist.
Yeah. Got banned from Finsbury Park.
Yeah, AI not allowed at the wireless.
Yeah, but now you've seen those kung fu robots that have got in China. They look dangerous, and they've got those dog robots.
They are dangerous.
What are they going to be like in 20 years when we've got them running up our corridors at home?
Who knows? I have absolutely no idea, but at the same time, exactly the same way that they can be designed to be dangerous, they can also be designed to be helpful as well. So I think it's important that we don't lose sight of the way that, exactly the same way that everyone said, no, there's a bit of a difference here, and I'll go on to it in a second, but exactly the same way that everyone said that the internet was the end of the world for humans because of how it was going to change everything. By and large, the internet has revolutionised our lives.
Yeah, but these are machines making the decisions.
I was just going to say, the biggest difference, of course, is that the internet was designed to be person-controlled, whereas actually AI is not.
I'll tell you, there is another risk with AI, and it's something which has a name which in of itself is quite scary. It's called total catastrophic failure, right? And it's basically
Doesn't sound too good.
It's the electricity grid. The big problem you have with total catastrophic failure is that, as you know, they're constantly adjusting the amount of electricity being produced, the current, in order to balance things out. They used to do things like, put extra power on during Coronation Street.
FA Cup half time, everyone puts the kettle on.
The big problem is with these AI data centres. If for whatever reason there's a power reduction and they take the entire AI thing off the grid instantly, things start blowing up, right? There's also the massive water requirements as well. Why on earth they put them in deserts? I've got no idea.
Well, look, there is one thing that we've got a slight advantage over AI on, and that is that we don't require an internet connection to function. So it's very simple. If AI does suddenly become a threat, all that takes is to literally shut off the internet connection.
It will work a way around it.
The big problem. I think the big problem you've got now, because there are people talking about this, the Russian submarine that was parked off the coast of the United Kingdom. If our internet cables were cut, things like. I mean, there would be food shortages. Well,
I remember the toilet roll crisis. That was bad enough.
I mean, and all the toilet roll crisis was, can I be blunt? People not having a poo in restaurants and pubs and doing it at home instead.
Never thought of that.
The reality was all the toilet roll was at Macro where it was meant to be, right? But just nobody buying it.
That's incredible. And on that bombshell, I think we better take that in and think about that for longer. 0344.
Hang on a second, Asher.
We were all crapping in restaurants until. That's a very good point.
Do you hold it in and especially go to Wetherspoons?
No, I like to go to my own. You know what I mean? I always find it a bit strange when you have to go somewhere else. 0344 499 1000. It's a bit weird, get a bit homesick. Back after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'll tell you what, why don't we go to the front page of the Daily Mirror? Grand National Weekend, are you into the horses?
Well, I'm into them a little more than the Green Party are, let's put it that way.
I'll tell you what, I thought Nevin Truesdale from the Jockey Club was absolutely superb. He knew that, I mean, he's moved on now, but he knew full well that there would be an attack on Aintree, there would be an attack on the Grand National, and he spent, about 2 years touring the TV studios, explaining why horse racing was not bad for horses. And when they did attack the Grand National, just nobody was sympathetic.
Well, what I think is quite extraordinary is that I actually found myself yesterday in the New Forest, and if you know the New Forest, you'll know that there are parts of it where there are plenty of horses that roam quite happily,
yes,
totally and utterly at their leisure. But it had to be said that so many of these horses looked in really quite poor nick. And that's not because people are neglecting them per se, it's because they are technically wild. They're allowed to roam around and do what they want. Now, if you go to the likes of
it's like tramps.
Yeah, if you go to the likes...
So they're basically like horse tramps.
Yes, well, if you go to the likes of the Grand National, I promise you, you put a horse from the Grand National next to one of the wild horses, you would know exactly which one is better looked after, that's for sure.
No, without doubt. I mean, there is
who would win in a fight?
I don't like I must say one thing, I don't like the riding crops. I will say that. I don't.
Well, yeah, but when a rider falls off, the horse carries on, so they obviously like it a bit.
I've got to be honest with the whips and whatever. I mean, I think, you know what, if there was a ban that came in, it would be fine. As long what you've got to
overuse of the whip is bad.
It's perfectly possible to ride a horse without whipping it. Perfectly possible.
Well, it was going to go slow.
Well, the problem is with whipping it.
Do you ride horses? Do you?
No, I haven't done. I literally think when I was a child, I tried it once and I didn't like it. So.
It was good. I rode a big horse in Syria once. In the desert.
You were too high.
Too high up.
Oh, sorry.
It's scary.
It's not that way. Do you mind?
They're amazing. They're better than jeeps for going over rocks. It's incredible when you walk. You think, how is it going to walk across here? And it just walks across like rivers and rocks.
Yeah, but allegedly a camel's better for crossing a desert. I'd still want to be in a jeep than a camel.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
A jeep doesn't spit, for starters.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it spits at you, does it, when you're on?
Technically not.
Camels bite you, though, don't they? They bite you.
Well, I don't know. They get the hump with you.
The Daily Express blockaded by French fuel protest. British tourists have been left stranded in Corsica as protest fishermen block ports over soaring cost of diesel. And did you see also in the Republic of Ireland, they've been blocking motorways? This is because of the migrants problem. They're furious, and they've actually brought tanks in. They're blocking fuel. The government there have brought tanks in, and it's all kicking off in Republic of Ireland, but they're trying to keep it quiet. It's not really making it on the mainstream media.
Well, because they're worried that the problem will spread, aren't they? So if it's seen that the civil war is breaking out in parts of Ireland, which, let's be honest, that's
all over the place.
By the way, look, I just want to ask you, there's an advert for a 25% off wine at Tesco, which shouldn't product place particularly. What are you, white, red or rosé man, Asher?
I do like a red. I know it's a lot of people frown upon it, but I do like a nice roomed red with a piece of red meat.
Yeah, I would say that if it had to be wine, it would definitely be more red for me. But, well, actually, no, it depends. It's red winter and then white in the summer. But I definitely don't like rosé. Don't like rosé at all.
Howin's number 10.
I like a nice lemony Chablis.
I just personally prefer spirits. I'm more of a whiskey drinker.
You used to go to that cigar
Are you
whiskey
still
place,
are you still a member of that whiskey club? That place is excellent.
Sadly, I'm not at the moment. I am thinking of changing.
You got barred.
Renewing it. But I tell you what it is. This is going to sound like talk about first world problems. As you may know, there is a members club that used to be synonymous with people in the media, which now is open to everyone, called Soho House. There are other
vulgar when they let the other people in.
Well, it wasn't particularly what I remember it when I used to go there as a guest. And so I eventually, you have to be recommended by a couple of people. I'd finally got recommendation, and therefore I managed to get my membership. And because the membership for that is quite pricey, I thought that it was a bit ridiculous. Yeah, well, sadly, I wasn't under 30. It was a bit ridiculous.
You never have been, have you?
Yeah, born middle-aged. A bit ridiculous to have the membership to that and the whiskey club. So I decided that the whiskey club had to pay.
Full of tossers now, anyway.
But I've now left that.
I've got to be honest with you. Asher has taken the words out of my mouth. I was going to say I went into Soho House and it was full of tossers.
But that is the USP now as well. Same as the Groucho Club.
I'll tell you something else. I'll tell you something else that Soho House did, which I think is really, really, really irritating. There's a hotel in Windsor called the Oakley Court. Soho House have taken it over, and you can only buy a drink in there if you are a Soho House member staying the night.
Oh.
That is very irritating. It's a nice bar on the riverfront, and literally local residents are not allowed to go in.
That's a bit unfair. Look, I mean, on the flip side,
you don't want the locals getting in there.
In the defence of Soho House, who are obviously not here to answer whatever decision they've made, they have reversed that decision when it comes to, say, the Brighton branch. So there's a Brighton Soho House as well. They have now decided that they weren't getting quite enough traffic from London, so as a result of it, they've now let locals in.
Oh, so when it suits them, they'll do it. Oh, right.
I have to say, I bet Brighton Soho House is insufferable.
Oh, do you know what?
No, the people in there will be dreadful.
There's one in Istanbul, isn't there? There's one in Istanbul. You never hear about Istanbul. It's always talking about Istanbul.
The truth is that I see what we did there. The truth is that it's true that I didn't care terribly for the clientele of the Brighton branch, but I must be honest, the Brighton branch was my favourite. But like I said, I no longer a member there now because I've realised what a ridiculous waste of money.
See, you've lost Phil Dave as a member. And
I'll tell you what I used to be a member of. I must join again. The
Masons.
The Wheel Tappers and Shunters Club.
The City University Club, right, which was based at Cornhill and is now based on Crooked Friars in the City of London. This place has got something like 500 members, right? It's not huge, but because it's the only private members lunch club in the City of London, it has reciprocal with, get this, 450 private members clubs around the world. Basically, you can go anywhere. Oxford and Cambridge, National Liberal, Travellers, all the places. Basically, wherever you go in the world, they have reciprocal. But the best one was they had a reciprocal with this club called the 1857 Club. I thought that's quite interesting in Arlington, Texas, and I looked it up. And I said to them, this is quite strange, because so the City University Club is sort of it's for people who went to Oxford and Cambridge who work in the city, or it used to be. The 1857 Club was described as the littlest gay bar in Arlington, Texas. Right. And so I phoned up the club secretary and I said, this place, is this a drag bar? And the woman said, yes, it is. She said, what happened was, there was this particularly eccentric old member of the City University Club who, wherever he used to go, used to look up in the yellow pages to find what private members clubs were nearby and would take a letter of introduction and go, would you like to sign a reciprocal deal with the City University? And he built this global network. And apparently he'd misunderstood what the 1857 Club was.
Amazing.
And when he arrived, it was a drag bar in Arlington, Texas. They said, well,
I find that a bit oxymoronic in the first place as a drag bar in the middle of Texas.
Exactly.
To be honest, but
so
anyway.
they elected him president of the 1857 Club and signed the agreement. Now, it's fair to say, and I don't want to be discriminatory, but I think it's fair to say that the City University Club were not that keen on transvestites or transsexuals coming to dinner. None of them ever did. Anyway, what's next?
Well, we've got to take a little break. I was a member of the Dennis the Menace fan club, and you got the furry Nasher badge with the waggling eyes.
Yeah,
did you get that? Yeah. 30 pence.
Oh, you see, look, you're nice. You see, you two are made for each other.
And there were reciprocal arrangements, I think, with the Dandy magazine and Core. 0344 499 1000. It's Andre and Ash going through the papers.
What is
with
the Core?
Phil Dave. Do you not remember Core? Did you not study it in history? It was like, Weezer or whatever they were. It was all comics. We'll go Whizzer and Chips and all that, yeah.
I like the Viz.
Yeah, Viz. No, Viz. It's not the Viz.
I'll tell you my favourite
like
picture.
Johnny Fart Pants, Buster Gonad.
Before we go to the break, I love the guy who was the agony uncle who used to give irrelevant answers to questions. And I'll give you a classic example. A woman wrote in saying, me and my husband haven't had sex in 15 years. I have recently become very keen on the milkman, and we've started a sexual relationship behind my husband's back. The other day, we had sex so hard that we broke the bed. What should we do? And he replied, good quality wood glue will fix it.
Me and James Wales were in there once as Roger Melly. They rewrote the whale sacking story. It's in there at the year it was. I've got it at home, yeah. So, because he was, obviously, Whale was big in Newcastle and Viz was, from...
Was it?
Still going, actually. Yeah, it was a famous Newcastle...
Sid the Sexist.
Sid the Sexist, yeah. The fat... I can't even say it. 0344 491 1000. Billy the Fish will be back after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Okay, so we're talking during the break. This is the press preview with Andre Walker, Asher Gould and Phil Dave. We were talking about the fact that Phil Dave has a cold.
No, I don't. I won't, so just to be clear on that front, I had one about 2 weeks ago, but I was just saying just now, ever since then, I know it sounds a bit disgusting, but I haven't ever stopped blowing my nose, and it's just a bit of a hang-up for him. But I feel fine. I'm absolutely fine.
I will tell you my theory on why this building is often susceptible to illness. Because you've got to remember, this building is full of people who spend their day going places, meeting new people. They don't sit inside the building. When I worked at the House of Commons, remember, 650 members of Parliament would leave work on Thursday, and on the Friday, they would meet their constituents up and down the country. So every regional bug from everywhere in Britain was returned to Westminster on Monday morning. But the worst place, never, ever, ever share a house with somebody who's a nursery school teacher. I mean, that is just
kids. Yeah.
Nursery.
If you've got young kids, you always get stuff. You know.
Yeah.
Nursery schools are the enemy. I had a friend of mine. He said, "I'm always ill these days." When it's because you live with a primary school teacher. You need to get rid of the primary school teacher. I appreciate you like her, but boot her out. Right.
0344 499 1000. Give us a call. We'll ring you back. We're going to talk to Sid and Paula and Simon and you two after the news. 0344 499 1000. 2000 or leave a voice note.
We've got you two on.
We will. Yeah, we've got you two, Bonio and The Edge. The Daily Mail, now redheads, green idiocy halts AI deal worth billions. Miliband blamed as ChatGPT maker stops UK data centre over energy costs and red tape. We remember we pay 4 times more, sometimes 5 times more than they do in America for energy. Do you know we pay well over double for petrol, and they're moaning. I mean, it costs about 20 quid for them to fill their tanks.
I don't know why OpenAI wasted their time talking to Ed Miliband.
Do you remember Tesla did the same when and basically Starmer slagged because he doesn't like Elon Musk? They were going to build something in Scotland.
Yeah, no, I don't blame them at all. Honestly, I just think that anyone who tries to deal with certainly the likes of Ed Miliband. I mean, sorry, can we just be honest here? Ed Miliband, you know, regardless of whether you like or loathe Labour, he is
a Looney Tune,
an absolute moron. He's a dangerous lunatic.
We've said on this show before.
He's not right, is he?
We've said before that Ed Miliband is a pagan. He's a worshipper of the earth, and I think he's just an extremist.
Do you remember him with the ukulele? I mean, that's who they think might be Prime Minister, even though he failed. Anyway, Ed Miliband's mad dash, and that big, well, he would have been better. That big rocky he stood in front of. Ed Miliband's mad dash to net zero has been blamed for an AI giant shelving a multi-million-pound investment in Britain. OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, says soaring energy prices as well as red tape were behind the decision to pause its Stargate UK project. I mean, it's ridiculous. I heard some professor the other day saying we should be setting up little nuclear stations, but it would cost £1 billion just in the legal fees and, you know, doing all the red tape stuff. Costing it near on £1 billion before you've even dug something out. By the way, this new Hinkley nuclear station, they've spent £700 million to save fish. 150 fish a year get sucked up a pipe, these rare fish. We've spent £700 million to save 150 fish a year.
You have to laugh out of nerves, honestly.
Do you know, that's about half a million of fish.
It's very, very odd.
Do you know, is it Sizewell? I think it might be Sizewell, which is designed to take the following. A earthquake in the Bay of Biscay which will destroy Devon and Cornwall, but not the Sizewell nuclear power station. Wow. It'll be apparently it'll generate at some point there will be a 15-foot tsunami which will destroy Devon.
I've heard that about, apparently in Tenerife there's a side of a mountain that will fall down and a tidal wave will hit the east coast here. So
maybe we should encourage Ed Miliband to move to the east coast in anticipation.
Good idea.
He's going to lose his seat though, isn't he? Surely he'll lose Doncaster Reform.
Why don't they put him in a safe one or something?
I don't know. The chicken run's not that easy to do, is it, in Labour?
Yeah. What, are they doing it with no brain arena, aren't they? And they moving.
Yeah,
they're moving her.
My favourite thing about Angela Rayner is there was an old saying in Conservative politics: the other person is you. Angela Rayner has been going on about the fact that she's not that rich, and she didn't feel that she should pay 45 grand in stamp duty because she was trying to look after a disabled son. Yes, Angela. We've made that point to you that you're not that rich. We've made the point to you that for somebody earning 100 grand a year, trying to have three households with a disabled child and in London are going to struggle. It was you that said these people are so rich they could be punitively taxed.
She's such a hypocrite. She buys her council house and then pulls up the drawbridge for other people. She says ministers shouldn't get the parachute, payment, but she asks for it when she leaves. And, if a Prime Minister resigns, she thinks there should be a general election, but not if Starmer resigns. She's looking to get to be leader. So she's a total hypocrite.
Well, this is the problem, and this is precisely why champagne socialists make me sick, is because I just think they are very, very quick to try and take other people's money or redistribute other people's money, but God forbid you should touch theirs.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's like when you look at the communist leaders, and as soon as they get to power, they have the Mercedes and all the trappings.
But I think
Ceausescu.
Well, look at Sadiq Khan as the classic example. If I'm sorry to swear, but have a look at the state of him, for example. He's the one who is absolutely determined to banish cars from London's roads. Yet. Have you ever seen him on a train? No.
Ken Livingstone used to be on the train. Boris used to ride his bike. He goes, and what was all that submachine gun stuff that was left in a bag? Why have they got such crazy military equipment there?
I have to say, after the what was it? The 7th of July, was it? Bomb attacks in London years and years ago.
Yeah.
Ken Livingstone.
2005, I think it was.
Ken Livingstone was in Ken Livingstone was in Singapore for the announcement of the London 2012 Olympics, or the announcement of the candidate city for the 2012 Olympics, which turned out to be London. When he came back, they insisted that he get special branch guards in order to protect him while he was sitting on Cobra. Do you know that he used to get the tube anyway with 2 guards with him, and the armour-plated car had to go from tube stop to tube stop just in case they had to evacuate him. And he said, the reason I'm doing that is because there's been an attack on the transport network. I want to be seen to trust it.
He went on his own as well on it as well.
Oh, loads of times.
I mean, Boris, I did the show with him years ago, and he used to ride his bike in. He did say it was his 7th bike because they keep getting stolen. But when he was riding his bike once, he saw a girl being mugged, and he actually rode, this is when he was mayor, he rode up and saved the day, you know what I mean, forgetting his own security. All right, he messed up the country with the Boris.
My favourite thing that ever happened to Ken Livingstone was when Julia Hartley-Brewer said to him, Ken, can you get through a whole interview without mentioning Hitler? And he went, yes, I can. When Mr. H ran Germany. But what was amazing about him was he's the first British politician who, let's be honest, admired Hitler.
I certainly got the impression he did, but I'm sure he'd say otherwise.
I don't. Yeah, I mean,
he loved him.
I don't think he. I don't know. We can't really.
I mean, when he said Hitler was a Zionist.
Without a shadow of a doubt, that was one of the most bizarre comments I've ever heard any politician say.
His reason for saying that was that Hitler had considered deporting all Jews to Madagascar.
He's a Zionist.
He's a Zionist. I mean, just to be clear, Zion is not Madagascar.
No, I think we have to be quite grateful that the likes of Livingstone is nowhere near power anymore, but at the same time, we do have to carefully consider who we do have. And when you've got the likes of Red Ed and also Sadiq Kant, then you've got to be very concerned about some of the people who we do have in the political class.
Oh, very concerned.
I just want to ask one final question.
By the way, in the morning going to be Jeremy Kyle on, so make sure you're safe.
Just want to ask you one very quick question about these undersea cables. Look, Russia is surveying them. That is because if there was a conflict, they would seek to destroy them. Should we do more to protect our communications infrastructure, i.e. using more satellites?
I think what we should be doing is we should actually be taking the threats of the world a little more seriously than we do. I find it interesting the way the government reckons that the biggest threat to this country at the moment is Russia. I would disagree with that strongly. I think the biggest threat to this country is fundamental Islam. I think it's very important to make that distinction because I'm slightly fed up of the fundamentalists using Islam and those who are peaceful Muslims as an excuse to hide.
Anyway, look, coming up is Jeremy Kyle. Make sure you stay tuned. Jeremy Kyle coming up if you're listening in the morning.
By the way, I made a suggestion to Conservative Friends of Israel. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what you're thinking about this. I think that they should take out an advert in every national newspaper challenging Zach Polanski on the debate and say, right, it's time for you to justify your friendship with the jihadis on national TV against Conservative Friends of Israel. I would love that.
I think it would be splendid just to see anyone with a quarter of a brain go up against Zach Polanski because you'd almost guarantee they'd win.
But I'll tell you one thing, Zach Polanski may be a useful idiot, but if there's going to be a genocide, a pogrom, a second Holocaust in Britain, it'll be because of him. I'm not saying he wants that. I'm saying that his energising of the jihadis...
I think, to be clear, I think it would be... I know. I think, to be clear, it would be more his compatriots.
Thanks, Phil, Dave. Yes, back after the news.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Okay, well, look, we've talked about loads of stuff in the press preview, which somebody said that wasn't very good because we didn't actually review any of the papers. Get out of it. So just phone us about anything, 0344 499 1000 if we think you're rubbish.
And we'll ring you
just
back.
cut you off. Okay, Kevin is in Basingstoke. Kevin, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. You?
Not bad, not bad.
All right, man, all right.
You often give us an alternative view. What is your alternative view tonight?
Well, I just sent you a picture of Sadiq Khan on the underground, so he does go on trains, but that's not why.
There's probably no one else on it like King Jong-un, just his own private
Are
mayoral
you
train.
JKGT?
Oh yeah, we
No.
can't get that. Yeah, no.
Oh.
Anyway, yeah, go on. So you got the tube once.
Yeah, I think this is the biggest mistake what Donald Trump's done. Well, definitely in my lifetime for 50, 60, 70 years. I mean, what he's doing in Iran. I mean, what he's done to the global market. You know, GDP's damaging. It's going to be food shortages.
What happens?
So never mind the nuclear threat.
What happens, Kevin, to those people? Look, I don't disagree that this has caused considerable stress to people, and obviously when prices go up for us, the poorest in the world, obviously have very significant hardship. But what happens when somebody says, we've been at war with these people for 47 years. They machine-gunned their own citizens a couple of months ago. They're executing 14-year-olds for holding up signs saying, please give us democracy. Isn't it time to just say, screw them?
That's not even the actual point, is it? It's because they've got uranium enriched to 60%, and that's only for one reason, which they're saying clearly. They want to destroy Israel, they want to destroy America, and they're getting rockets that can reach Diego Garcia. So if you're not against them, then you're inviting nuclear annihilation. It's nothing like North Korea. He's not stupid, King Jong-un. He knows what he's doing. He's not a religious maniac like these guys in Iran. They would see it as, you know, like a massive suicide bomb.
But hang on a second. I mean, I've got to be honest with you. I see both sides of this, but I don't think that they have to be mutually exclusive. Can't you turn round and say, God, bombing Iran has caused significant hardship. That has been bad. And you know, the fact that oil is going up is a real issue, straight from moves. However, we will not allow these people to get a nuclear weapon. Can you not say both, Kevin?
Yeah, but he hasn't improved the situation. Apparently, the regime that's taken over, like the relatives or whatever, they're even worse than what was there before.
Yeah, but they're even worse without a nuclear facility.
The nuclear weapon thing, there was an agreement under Obama, which Trump tore up. And because of that, they've enriched their uranium up to 60%, where it was only like...
So you don't think they were trying to get a nuclear bomb when Obama was... are you really that naive?
Well, they haven't got one nuclear bomb, have they?
Well, what are they enriching the uranium? They have actually said they have got some already, but I think
they did say they did freely admit the money that Obama unfroze and sent to them, they did use on their nuclear program. Now, okay. They admitted to doing that. They did say it was a civilian nuclear program, not a military nuclear program. But, you know...
Which was a lie, because you don't enrich to 60%.
It is quite hard to... do you know what I mean? I mean, Obama did a deal. Obama did a deal. My point is... Give us a second, Kevin. My point is, Obama did a deal in which the Iranians agreed not to attempt to build a nuclear bomb, and instead... highly enriched uranium for civilian purposes to a standard where it could be used for weapons.
No, it's the only reason for 60% enriched uranium is a nuclear bomb. It's not for any other reason.
Yeah, but the Pentagon actually said that they weren't making a nuclear bomb. There was nowhere near.
Yeah, but wasn't
on the news.
No, but
really, well, why is Trump saying it?
No,
then?
but hang on a second. But I think that's Ash's very point, which is you don't have to build a bomb if you have managed to build a facility that can enrich uranium to an extent that it can be used in a bomb. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
the bomb is not the big issue.
Just let them, obviously, they are doing that, and you're willing to take the risk that they're not. just because you think they're not.
There was an agreement in place.
Oh, right, they agreed it. Like there was an agreement for Hezbollah to be disbanded.
But
and
if you think...
Do you know what I mean? You trust these people. This is the trouble with the West, is that we go, oh, look, they've agreed to this, they've agreed... It doesn't work like that in the real world.
But he hasn't
achieved anything, has he?
Of course he has. He's destroyed their navy, their air force and their military. They've got nothing.
But I'm convinced, look, I'm not a nuclear scientist, but I'm convinced of the following, right? Bear with me on this. I'm sure that the difficult bit about building a nuclear missile is the nuclear bit, not the missile bit. Right? I think most people would logically say that's correct.
And we've already got to Diego Garcia.
If you have enriched uranium to a standard where it's usable in a nuclear missile, and you have non-nuclear missiles, one would assume it's not very difficult to build a nuclear missile. The key thing to stopping a nuclear program is not destroying the missile, it's destroying the nuclear.
Yeah, but what Donald Trump ran on was no more wars. And all the experts in the military told him that this was you shouldn't be doing this, but he didn't take any notice. He just went ahead with his the people around.
Yeah, but he was right to, because Iraq were doing the same thing. Saddam Hussein was about to develop a nuclear missile. Israel went in. The whole world had a go at Israel. And then about 5 years later, they said Israel were right. It's the same thing that is happening now. And if you think Iran aren't trying to, develop nuclear weapons, as Mike would say, I've got some swampland in Florida to sell you.
Yeah, but look what's happened. The strait is closed. We've got shortages of gas, oil, fertilizer. Prices going to shoot up. There's going to be mass hunger.
It's better than nuclear annihilation, though, isn't it?
But
he had the nuclear bomb. You keep saying about the nuclear bomb.
You think they haven't got? They're not trying to develop the nuclear bomb. They just do it for the hell of it.
Let me throw this another way. Right, the cost of many raw foodstuffs increased exponentially as a result of us saving Ukraine from being destroyed by Russia. There is no doubt that had Kiev fallen to Vladimir Putin, that the increase in the price of wheat globally would not have happened. Is that then an argument to say, in order to maintain food prices, we should have let the independent and democratic government of Kiev fall?
No, but look what's happened because of this. The sanctions have been lifted on Russian oil, and the prices have shot up. The man.
My point was much more hypothetical than that. It was what my point was. Look, if you are only interested in the price of raw materials, you would have to say, okay, don't bomb Iran, but you would also have to say, don't save Ukraine.
Well, not really. Well, no, because they was invaded, wasn't they? But Ukraine.
No, but if all you're bothered about is raw material prices, then there is no doubt that helping Ukraine beat Russia has added considerably to the price of many foodstuffs.
Yeah, but but America invaded. Well, not invaded, but bombed. Iran, didn't they? No,
had Iran done nothing to get? Had Iran done nothing then?
But I think there is another thing. If you look at the arrest of Nicolas Maduro, and just to remind everybody, Nicolas Maduro wanted the Venezuelan gold from the Bank of England. The UK government and the Bank of England rejected his request on the grounds he wasn't the president of Venezuela, he'd rigged the election. So just to be clear on that, look, if you look at what Donald Trump did in Venezuela, I think that he has been consistent in saying that this is not a war, because it was the surgical removal of an illegitimate president.
Well, I mean, you say, but the thing is, nobody supports what Donald Trump's done. In America, in Europe...
The Venezuelans did. The Venezuelan people did. The Iranians are calling for him to do it. The ones that are getting hanged for being raped, and the gay kids getting hanged in the town square.
I have to say to you...
They're happy about it.
I have to say to you, look, and I'm not being critical, but... I've met some Zionists in my time, but Asher Gould is the winner, right? And some of the things that he says about Israel, I think, is overly gushing. But there is no doubt whatsoever. There is no doubt whatsoever that Iranians are positive about what Israel is doing to Iran. right? And I know that because they painted Israeli flags on the street in Tehran and in the Middle East. Showing the sole of your foot to anything is grossly disrespectful. The Iranians were jumping over the Israeli flag. And actually, it just strikes me, do they love Jewish people? I think they probably don't care. I think what they recognise is that a democratic country in the Middle East has huge benefits, and they want to be the second democratic country in the Middle East.
And your enemy's enemy is your friend. I mean, they're on the same side fighting the same evil.
So what's happened, what Donald Trump's done, how is that helping the people of Iran? It's not, because the government's still in place.
Well, is it? How long has it got? It's not going to just stay in place, is it? If it's going to continue like it is.
I think there is the problem, isn't it, Kevin, with what is the outcome? If you look back at Afghanistan, which admittedly is quite a long time ago, so Afghanistan was America's worst military defeat since Vietnam, right? But actually, in terms of their original plan, which was to go into Tora Bora to take down the Al-Qaeda network, to run Osama bin Laden out of town, ideally kill him, but at least make him operationally useless and get rid of the Taliban, they did that in 6 weeks, right? And then what they kept doing was going, we must do this now, we must do that now, we must do... the reality is, Donald Trump does not want Iran to get a nuclear weapon, and it will not have one. The regime change...
That's up to the people of Iran.
...is much harder.
That's up to the people.
I think this whole nuclear bomb thing is just an excuse for what he's done.
Oh. You've suddenly gone very quiet.
But anyway, we're all going round in circles. He thinks it's all a myth. They were never going to get a nuclear bomb. I'm a bit more...
I have to say, Asher, I remain of the view that in terms of building a nuclear missile, I'm convinced the nuclear bit is harder than the missile bit.
Yeah, exactly. They've already got the missiles. They've just got to stick it in, haven't they? Open the missile, shove it in and fire it. 0344 499 1000. Bill with Simon, Janice, Richard, Sid and Paula and you two. 0344 499 1000. It's Talk with Andre and Ash.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is Talk. This is Talk. Yeah, we were just talking. Apparently only 40% of Iranians actually identify as Muslim. They don't identify as anything else, I think, in the main. But they're basically quite secular. And I think there is this real impression in Britain that because they've got a nutter government, they're all nutters. And actually, they're largely not. There's very few Islamic fundamentalists in Iran. I mean, there are some, and they run the country.
They run the country.
But they're not.
It's a separate force. The IRGC and the Iranian army are actually,
I mean, actually, to be fair, you know, I've been to what Middle Eastern countries have I been to? Well, I've been to Israel, but if you meet if you meet, the Muslim population in Israel, which are not known as Palestinians, they're known as Israeli Arabs because they don't believe in a Palestinian state or they don't live in one. But they're incredibly moderate as well. They're not.
Well, they're very proud. They're a bit like Americans who are proud of America. They consider themselves Israelis. A lot of them go in the military, and we saw on October 7th there were a lot of heroic Bedouins and Druze that got a lot
It's quite interesting actually about the Israeli Arabs because. Look, when people said, "Oh, they serve in the military, they like Israel, they've got the best standard of living of any
they're in the
Muslim
Knesset,
population,"
they're judges, you know what I mean?
I actually thought that was, like one or two of them were all right with Israel, but actually, it does appear on the face of it that when you speak to them privately with no Jewish or Israeli person around, they're still pretty positive, right? I think that
they're the best standard of living in the Middle East I
think actually. I'm not so sure Israel is as disliked in the Middle East as we like to believe.
Well, with the Gulf states, obviously, they're building up a good relationship inside.
And I think actually their management of Jerusalem has been pretty fair-minded. Anyway, let's go to Simon in Sevenoaks. Simon, you're on talk.
Wonderful. Pleasure to speak to you both.
All right, Simon.
And you.
Yeah, just in regard to your previous caller, Kevin, I mean, there's no peaceful reason to enrich uranium beyond 48%, because that is the maximum you need for medical processes, which is the most enriched you need, unless you're going to develop fissionable material. Yeah. But at 60%, they might not have been close to actually developing a device that went bang. But they could have irradiated.
So what we've done is obviously
a dirty bomb.
What we do is obviously remember facts off the top of our head. Asher was slightly wrong, but let's have a read of this. Iran is actively enriching uranium up to 90%, and that is beyond what you would need.
90% is weapons grade.
60%. So they've not hit the 90.
Beyond 48%.
Yeah. Okay.
The only outcome is weapons grade.
Sure, but they have not got to 90%, which is what they'd need for a weapon, but they have got to 84%. Right?
Yeah, the International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors have reported significant stockpiles, with stating that traces of 84% enriched uranium were found. Iran has also restricted international access to some of its nuclear sites. What do you think they're doing it for? Digital watches?
You're going to achieve critical mass. That's a device that can go bang.
I think
there's no reversing it. You look at North Korea. You can't. Once that's gone, we've lost control. They can threaten us forever. Then
out of the room, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think there is also a point that President Trump made, which I instinctively kind of quite agree with, when he turns around and he says, "Look, Obama unfroze this money. The money was then used to enrich uranium in a deal about not building a nuclear bomb." I mean, it does feel like a direct, dare I say,
and it continued under Biden, which was actually Obama's third term.
Yeah, basically, but at the end of the day, they didn't just use it for enrichment of uranium, did they? I mean, they funded the proxies and everything like that. I mean, Israel...
They didn't even deny it, Iran.
Since 1948.
Iran didn't even really deny it, that this is what they were doing, and they said they're going to annihilate Israel. I mean, it does what it says on the tin.
If you believe President Trump's negotiators, they actually admitted that their desire was to achieve...
But if you look at the 7th of October attacks, and I keep making this point to people, the Hamas had... The reason it's so egregious what happened in Israel was because it was deliberately intended to provoke and offend the Israelis, going into peace camps, beheading people, sticking videos on Facebook of kids being shot, and all just whatever they could think of to enrage the Israeli population, they did it. And the reason they did it was this, that Saudi Arabia was about to do a peace deal with Israel, and Iran was determined that peace should not be given a chance. And so what we are talking about here is, we're talking about a regime in Tehran that says there is a real danger now of peace in the Middle East, a real danger of peace in the Middle East. Can somebody go and bake a toddler and stick it on Facebook?
You know, also October the 7th, and I think this is why most of the forces were up north, that they were Hezbollah were meant to also invade the north, but because there were too many forces up north, that didn't happen, because it was expected that it was going to be a double attack, and obviously, thank goodness.
But also the other
that's why it took so long.
The other thing that I think people forget is this. You know, going house to house is a nightmare when you've got terrorists embedding. The Israeli Defence Force are doing their best, right? But the fundamental problem here is there are Hamas terrorists being funded by Iran and instructed to behead Israeli citizens, right? You know, if the Iranians cared about Gaza, they would eradicate Hamas and then tell the Israelis to piss off.
Yeah, they're just pawns, the Gazans.
And Gaza gets flattened because it's impossible to do anything else.
Well, I mean, the thing is, with it being flattened, when the houses are, they're booby trapped, and nowadays they're not even strings; they're cameras. People are watching, so you have to basically destroy the property to go in there. There's no.
But the fundamental points, and I'll give you the final word on this, Simon. The fundamental point is that Iran feared that peace would outbreak in the Middle East. Therefore, they took action to ensure that there was a war.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole point. They want the eternal struggle to continue, and if peace breaks out, that's not going to work. But that's not actually the reason I called.
Okay.
Earlier you had Rear Admiral Dr. Chris Parry on.
We did.
Fabulous man. I have a hell of a lot of respect for him. I mean, after all, he did sink the Argentine submarine, the Santa Fe, in the Falklands War.
Did he? I didn't know that.
He was a commanding officer out there.
He was the commander of the aircraft, and he dropped 2 depth charges on it on the off the coast of South Georgia and blew its stern off.
I've got to be honest with you. People have always said to me that whenever a submarine is attacked, initially, if it gets hit, sailors are delighted, and then they think about what a nightmare it must be on board for the crew.
Yeah, obviously.
But it's a war, right?
It's normally very quick.
But that was his job. But you were discussing like the NATO treaty in Article 5.
Yes.
Now, basically,
can I just remind people, because just give us a second? Can I just remind people what the Rear Admiral said was what happens if Guam is attacked by China, and that would be an attack on the United States of America. Would NATO intervene?
Because it's a defensive agreement, so we'd have to.
No, we wouldn't, because it falls outside of the remit of the NATO treaty. Now, what you've got to understand about the NATO treaty, yes, it's a defensive alliance, but it's also a time capsule. It's a point of time when you become a signatory to the treaty. And in the case of the US, that was July 1948. For us, it was August. And so, consequently, any territories that you've owned at that time were covered, provided they were north of the Tropic of Cancer and in the North Atlantic Basin. Guam is in the Western Pacific, so it falls outside.
But he did say that, but. I might be wrong on this. I don't want to nail my colours to the mast too much. But I thought the point that he was making was, yes, it's not within the geographical territory, but because it's an attack on American forces, that in of itself may justify.
We're an ally, aren't we? Yeah.
May justify.
Not under Article 5.
No, maybe not. But morally, we should be.
Article 6 of the NATO treaty, it makes that abundantly.
They helped us in the Falklands.
Which is also why.
But they helped us in the Falkland Islands, didn't they?
Akrotiri, was not an attack on NATO territory, because Cyprus was covered when we ascended to the treaty in 1948. However,
but Akrotiri didn't exist.
Following independence, Cyprus was no longer covered by the NATO treaty.
Right.
And the same applies with the Falklands, because it's situated in the Atlantic Ocean below the Tropic of Cancer.
Mind you, it's interesting. It's interesting.
Territory.
It's interesting because the British didn't really consider the attack on Akrotiri to be an attack on the United Kingdom either. So I suppose that's a reasonable point.
But it's the legal point. It's just I've heard so many people saying, well, they've attacked British sovereign territory. We're in NATO. That's an attack on NATO. No, the attack on Turkey was an attack on NATO. So the Turkish could trigger Article 5, but the UK couldn't.
But somebody told me, and I've not read the NATO treaty, I must do that. My understanding is it gets put to a vote anyway, and you could vote no to helping your ally.
Oh, really?
Well, the only
it's not a very
time
good treaty.
Article 5 has been triggered was by President George H.W. Bush following the Twin Towers.
Yes.
That is the only time it's been invoked. However, I mean, you've got to consider the diplomatic fallout and everything like that. But
he said you're either with us or against us. You know, it was an unbelievable attack, and everyone got on side, didn't they?
What?
Even Starmer
to both Asher and indeed to Simon, what's going to happen with NATO? I mean, I'm hoping that Donald Trump is saber rattling, but I have to say to you, I think that the failure of Europe to A, defend itself, and B, to be a good ally to the United States of America, I think causes problems.
Yeah, but they want to keep the bases, don't they?
They
Americans.
do.
It's a huge problem, especially geopolitically.
Yeah, but this government won't be in power, and nor will the other European governments, hopefully, and he knows the people aren't against them.
No. I think the Americans are well aware that the vast majority of the European peoples are behind them, and they value American support.
We've got a rogue government.
Unfortunately, we have these progressives in government here, Spain, Germany, France, arguably. Look who. I mean, you've got a progressive in
Ireland as well,
in Poland, but the president is a decent fella.
Yeah.
Do you know, it's the whole thing. There's too many voices shouting.
And like you say, decency, isn't it?
I think Donald Trump is providing a service for the planet by trying to get rid of this regime.
Of course he is.
Okay, so Ash has been told off over this debate as to whether America helped Britain during the Falklands.
They gave us reconnaissance.
I've got to be honest. I remember I went to a dinner at the Ritz.
It was Reagan. He was Thatcher's mate.
With Margaret Thatcher. Yeah. And this girl stood up, American woman, and said, I think it's great the way America helped Britain in the Falklands. Now, obviously, America did. There was equipment given or whatever. But
intelligence.
Ideally, Maggie was looking for military, full-on military support. And she stopped and said, no. As I said to Ronald at the time, it's the only occasion when the Americans didn't help us. And I thought,
well, I mean, you look at the Second World War and the Americans go, we got you out, we declared war. No, they didn't declare war. Pearl Harbor happened and they still didn't declare war. Germany then declared war on America. That's what brought America into the war. They didn't actually declare a war. 0344 499, obviously they did after Germany did. 0344 499 1000. Janice, Simon, Richard, Sid and Paula and you two, give us a ring at Virtual Ash, at Andre JP Walker on Talk, and back in 2 minutes.
Across the UK. on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Do you know, I'm just going to say this, right? One of the things that I really, really like about Talk viewers and Talk listeners is that even though you're not political commentators, you're that, like, tier below. People who are extremely knowledgeable, people who down the pub kind of people listen to, whatever. We have had a conversation about the implementation of NATO's treaty, in which a series of members of the public have had a fairly coherent legal debate about the status of Guam. I mean, that's not bad, right? That is
quite high, you know, a high level stuff.
When people claim that people who are kind of centre right are all just idiots, I mean,
they know more than the rest of what's going on in the world.
Let's just be clear. A debate about the legal status of the NATO treaty vis-a-vis the defence of Guam is reasonably high level, I would suggest. All right, Janice is in Essex. Janice, you're on Talk.
Hiya, guys.
Morning, Janice. Great to have you on board.
I'm phoning you because I get so incensed about things, and I plague you. So I'm not only a plague of rats, I'm known as Rat Woman on your channel.
Yeah, she's got rats. But Janice calls us because she hasn't got a radio and she can listen on the phone. But
my TV blew up a couple of weeks ago. I am now going to have to get in. It was 24 and a half years old. So I'm now going to get another TV with whistles and flutes, which means I'm going to have to get into there.
Oh, you're getting a smart television.
Silly little TV.
Right, just to remind you.
You need Wi-Fi as well,
just to remind you, everybody says that we have given up on TV and we're now only on YouTube. No, that is not true. My TV gets Talk about 6 times.
Yeah, we're on Amazon, we're on Rakuzans, we're on loads of different formats. You're getting a smart TV. You've got to get Wi-Fi as well,
If you
Janice.
get Wi-Fi, it'll be on Freeview.
I'm going to have to do that, aren't I? I'm going to have to bite the bullet.
You're going to have to bite the bullet.
Right, can I ask you, I wanted to ask you 3 points.
Yes.
Because I plague you. Can I ask you one thing? Did Margaret Thatcher take a ship away? That is why Argentine invaded.
No.
And what Starmer could do is go and take that limping dragon and put it in front of it. So
no, what? Can I explain what happened with the Belgrano? So, there was an exclusion zone put around the
200
Falklands.
miles.
Yeah. So basically, what the British said was, we need to decide what we're fighting, if you like. So obviously, the question was, are we going to fight Argentina? No. What we're going to do is we're going to fight for South Georgia and we're going to fight for the Falklands. What happens is the General Belgrano, the ship, right, was zigzagging in and out of the exclusion zone.
Attacking.
The problem comes with this. It was attacked outside the exclusion zone. However, it was captained by the most decorated man in the Argentine Navy, who has said publicly that, and I'll quote him, there are many people, particularly on the British left, who have said that we were fleeing the scene of battle like cowards. That is not true. We were zigzagging in order to make it harder for us to be stopped. It was our intention to sink British ships. That's it. The reason why the Belgrano was so controversial was that the evidence that exonerated Margaret Thatcher of a war crime was intercepted Argentine signal intelligence, which she classified so that the Argentines wouldn't know we hacked their system. So the evidence that exonerated her was subject to the 30-year rule. I think the measure of the woman.
Next question, Janice.
The second one is, do we have a refinery? If we get oil, do we still have a refinery?
Not as many as we used to have. I think there's about 3.
Well,
I think the shutting Grange Mouth.
That's the one I've been to. And do we have a petrochem?
Yeah.
Well, we do not have an ability to deal with a long term reduction in the amount of oil coming into the country. I mean,
we've not got enough of anything.
Ed Miliband is absolutely off his rocker.
Yeah.
This country could be energy independent, and instead we're reliant on Russian gas.
Paying 5 times what the Americans pay. Anyway, Janice, let's go to Paula in Halifax. Hey up, Paula.
All right.
Good evening.
Morning.
My little darling.
By the way, do you say student where you are?
Are you drunk?
No, not at all.
Oh.
So what is it, Paula, on this? You know, we could have been asleep. It's past 12 at night.
I'm only messing with you. I've got to say, you look very dapper tonight, Ash.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, thanks.
Have you stolen that jacket?
Andre,
No, but
Andre.
Yeah.
I do.
Not
I love
technically.
you. I do love you, honest to God. But your hair, you need to sort.
No, he said himself.
No, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what's happening tomorrow. I'm gonna. So I like it more ready than whitey.
You used to have it up more.
So I'm
didn't you?
gonna dye it and get it chopped tomorrow. I don't know why I haven't. Actually, no. I'll tell you why I grew it.
What colour?
I'll tell you why I grew it long.
What colour are you going to do it, Andre? Because you're
That
really
one.
suited blonde.
Do blue like those protesters.
No, don't.
No,
say
right.
that.
Let me tell you why I grew my hair. Because I was playing Gary Newbon in this new film about Tyson, about Watson versus Eubank, and Gary Newbon had the side part thing. And what's happened is I've just been extremely lazy and not gone
He's sort
further.
of become possessed by the spirit of Gary Newbon from playing the part too much.
By the way, I'm not supposed to give away what happens in this film, but it's fair to say that Gary Newbon is no longer from Northampton. He's now from Manchester. And so I made no attempt at his accent whatsoever. And you're not going to believe this. You know how it used to be tense between him and the boxers. In the film, I have a fight with Chris Eubank's ringman. What happened was, no, I'm not joking. What we did was, right, I said to the ringman, I said, listen, when that camera starts, what I want you to do is shove me, right? And so he shoved me, so I shoved him back, and we just had a fight. Now, it's fair to say, Gary Newbon and my...
Are you joking?
No, Gary Newbon, a mild man from Northampton, is actually now a Mancunian having a fight with Chris Eubank.
I got Sheena Easton album off Gary Newbon in 1978 in Bingley Hall. It was an amazing time to meet Gary Newbon back in the 70s. Anyway, Paula, thanks for your call. Let's go to Trevor in Cheshire. Cheshire Trevor. He served in the Falklands, did you, Trevor? What did you serve in?
3rd Battalion Parachute Regiment.
Oh, right, the Paras, yeah.
And
by the way, just
thanks for your service, Trevor.
If you are a para and you live in Cheshire, do you know Robbie Peel?
No.
Oh, okay. He's just a mate of mine. Yeah. No, everyone in the Peel family is called Robert. I don't know why.
Anyway, Trevor, tell us, what did you call in about? Was it about the Falklands? And actually, the question, what was it about then?
Let me tell you what really annoys me about this whole situation is politicians. Personally, I hate this government.
Yep.
Because
a lot of people do.
And it relates forward now to. I used to live in North Swindon.
Yep.
I'm from St Helens, by the way. But I used to live in North Swindon, and I used to live near to Furford Air Force Base. Consequently,
yes,
and the dithering Gallian government initially refused to let the United
do you know something? That Air Force base was built to defend Britain during the Second World War, and we wouldn't let the Americans use it to defend their own. I mean, shame on us.
What were you saying, Trevor? What was you saying that happened there?
But by the way, it was and it was the same in Burton Wood in the Second World War. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but what were you saying about?
By the way, I know Burton Wood. Is it true? Is it true that the M62 is actually the runway?
No, I can't say that, kid.
Wouldn't be very good, with all the...
Down in RAF Fairford, right, it's got a landing strip nearly 2 miles long.
Right.
And RAF Mildenhall, Lakenheath, right, and Fairford were built essentially to protect us from people who posed a threat to our country.
Yeah, and the Americans were the one who were helping us out with those, is basically.
Yeah, and this dithering Italian Prime Minister said initially, no, you can't use it.
Trevor, can I ask you this question?
Outrageous.
Look, much as we are all British patriots, if Donald Trump turned round and said, screw you, I'm not going to defend you, I'm not going to be a member of NATO, you're no good for me, you're just a waste of money, I would have to say I would have sympathy with Trump's position.
Well, so would I.
Yeah.
I think personally, I think he's a brilliant Prime Minister, right?
Yeah, President.
And,
Yeah.
President, yeah.
Yeah.
And the point I'm making is, right, they bailed us out of 2 world wars, basically.
Yeah.
No matter which way it came.
What do you think about Margaret Thatcher, who was obviously the Prime Minister at the time, and she was a bit like a Donald Trump, wasn't she?
Yes, she was. And initially I hated her because of all the mining industry and blah, blah, blah. But listen, within 48 hours, she had about 24 warships heading down with a Canberra cruise, which I was on, Canberra cruise ship, private ship, right?
They converted the cruise ships, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that was amazing when she went to the Commons and she said, in the next few days, a task force will sail. And then now I got told they had to get all the kit from Gibraltar because they sort of set sail and didn't have everything. But I mean, I'll tell you one thing. I think the importance of the Falklands was, you know, this country was really in the doldrums in the 70s, and the Labour government had done to Britain what Keir Starmer's Labour government's doing. You know, stagflation, the economy's going, the brain drain, taxes high. And I don't think that people knew where the Falklands was, and I don't think they were massively bothered. But where it was important was that front page of Newsweek magazine, The Empire Strikes Back. And finally people said, do you know what? We've got a Prime Minister with some bloody gumption.
Exactly. And by the way, in my lifetime, I'm 68 now, but the best economic times were at the end of the 80s.
Yes.
Let me tell you that. So she turned that economy around. And I hated her because all my mates who worked down the pits or glass factories or whatever, right? Well, she turned that economy around.
I will say one thing to be critical. I mean, I think in politics what you have to do is constantly change things and tweak them. I think it is fair to say that you know, energy independence has become a major issue, and I think that Margaret Thatcher didn't foresee that perhaps in the way that she should have.
She didn't know so well, though, didn't she?
I think, that's right. Of course she did, yeah. I just think also there's an over-reliance, not just on the service sector, but the service sector in the southeast of England.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that you've got an awful lot of the United Kingdom which isn't paid its own way, and that's fine as long as the financial service sector in the southeast of England always performs, and I'm not sure it always will.
I don't know what to say to that, kid. All I'm saying is I can only speak about my life's experiences.
Tell us about your experience in the Falklands. I mean, were you at the Goose Green when they surrendered, or tell us about?
People think Goose Green was on the edge of
Port Stanley.
It was in the middle, wasn't it, Goose Green?
It was 30 miles away.
Yeah.
You know
I'll tell you what I got told. I'll tell you what I got.
The parachute regiment went up the right side of the island because the SBS had been in and wiped out about 30 Argentinian troops, which allowed
the special boat service. I had a friend who was also a para. He wasn't in the Falklands, but he said we were about to invade Buenos Aires, starting with the airport. Did you hear anything about that, the mainland Argentina, before they surrendered?
But you must understand that in a theatre of war, right, 8,000 miles away from home, do you think you know everything that's going on? You don't.
No.
You just follow instructions.
Somebody told me that what was very bizarre about the Falklands was that obviously the British, because they had the night vision goggles, everybody knows it was their preference to fight at night. But they said what would happen is you'd basically be, you know, walking through these territories, and basically during the day you'd just be, you know, sitting down because obviously you're not fighting during the day, and obviously these farmhouses were all British nationals, and they were sort of wandering out with bacon sandwiches and cups of tea.
It was terrible because we had professional soldiers and they just had useless conscripts. They had a good air force, but you know the people you were fighting were just little kids forced into it, weren't they?
Sometimes, honestly, at my stage in life, I don't even know what to say. If you've been through that, right, and then honestly, as we approached Stanley, right, on Mount Longdon, right, We lost 20-odd kids on one hill on one night.
I've heard it's the worst war. Iraq and Afghanistan were nothing compared to what was going on in the Falkland Islands.
Yeah. And we're 8,000 miles away from home.
Well, I'll tell you the other thing. I used to share an office with Guy Opperman, who was the MP for Hexham, and he got invited to the Falklands, and he caused outrage because he said there's a bloke in my constituency who was a member of the Conservative Association. His son died in the Falklands, and he'd like to have his ashes spread where his son died. So when I go to the Falklands, I've got the ashes. And apparently the Falkland government went, "Oh my God, you shouldn't have done that." And he said, "Why?" And they went, "Because the Falklands are massive, right? That place is as close to Stanley as Wales is to London." And it was like, And he said, "Well, can I not get a helicopter?" And they went, You can't get a military helicopter to take you for free to spread these ashes."
Not unless you're Prince Andrew.
So he said,
Andrew.
It's mad though, isn't it?
He said in the end, what he did was, obviously he couldn't waste taxpayers' money on the helicopter. He said, what I did was, I went to the memorial in Port Stanley and put the ashes there. He said, I felt that was a good compromise.
Did the army look after you when you left? Did they look after your brothers in the paras after you left, medically and psychologically?
No.
No.
I have to answer that question really and go no. But let me tell you, right, I don't even know what to say sometimes. I don't, because...
What do you mean you don't know what to say about how you feel about me? What do you mean by saying that?
No, because when you sign up to protect your country, right, and then I see illegal immigrants, right, so by the way, a bit of a backstory here. My dad was in the second army in North Africa.
Yeah.
The 8th Army, rather, in North Africa, right?
El Alamein, you mean El Alamein, do you mean?
Yeah. Montgomery's army, right.
Yeah,
so,
Rommel, it's Rommel, yeah.
And then my granddad was in the First World War.
Wow.
And I'm going, what was all this about? Honestly, you just look back, and I look at these politicians who go, with a stroke of a pen, we'll agree to this, and this is all politics. I'm saying to myself, you go and do it, lad.
We've got a lot of our callers, and you've not said this, but we've got a lot of our callers who say that they regret serving the country.
Have you got any children that have joined the services, or would you recommend that they wouldn't if you did?
I wouldn't recommend any. No, I wouldn't.
No.
Right, we do have to move on, Asher.
Thanks for your service, Trevor. That was amazing. Give us a ring another time. It's Andre and Asher. What a great call. We've got Paul and not Janice, Sid, Simon, Richard. Anyway, back after this.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
By the way, you shouldn't have done that to me, producer Adam. I'd love to tell you what the joke is, but unfortunately, right. Do you know, on this show, there's a dump button. So what you're watching and listening is actually 14 seconds ago. The only time the dump button has ever been pressed on my show is to stop me having said something. By the way, we had a guy on the other week who was saying that he didn't believe that the Americans went to the moon. And he said, well, you know, they managed it in 8 years. They've not been able to do it since. And all this. I hadn't realised the reason they were able to do it in 8 years. And it's this. The Americans spent 5% of their GDP for 8 years.
It's because Kennedy came out and said we're going to land on the moon. And why did he say that?
Basically, the Americans at the moment spend 7% of their GDP on their military. So basically, they spent what was effectively almost as much as their entire military budget for 8 years. It cost gazillions to actually make it happen. And at the end of the 8 years, they just said, we can't afford to do that again.
And it's made of cheese. It's a sort of gorgonzola type cheese.
So Paul is in Hartlepool.
The monkey hanger.
All right, Andre. All
right, Paul. What's up, man?
Yeah, what I want to say is Edie was on there making that speech and that, right? One of the biggest weapons the country's got, an hostile country's got, is taking out communications, right?
Yes.
If those cables are taken out, okay, the satellites and all that, but we need a backup system so people can communicate.
Definitely. But I mean, wouldn't they be foolish to do that because we could just do the same to them?
Yeah, but you know,
less easily.
You know. We haven't got the gate to do it, have we?
Well, the Americans. Well, they blew up a pipeline, didn't they? The Americans.
I think the issue is with the UK, because it's an island. You can do that. Russia is not an island. China is not an island, and therefore, obviously, you could destroy internet cables, but it would involve digging them up, which I suspect is far harder.
And not only that, I mean, they're coming through the channel, right, with a Russian ship. I wonder if they slowed down to let the boats come over, you know, after their battalions or sleeper battalions coming into the country.
I mean, it's amazing. If Vladimir Putin had wanted to come and have a look at what's going on in Britain, he should have got rid of the submarine, get a couple of dinghies. The dinghies always make it.
We get our government going on, we spotted them and they didn't like that. The whole reason they did it was to be seen and take the mick out of our useless defence.
Do you know the Willen the coalition of the Willens, right, with Starmer?
Yeah.
All that,
coalition of the useless.
Yeah, he hasn't got a clue, right? And he's thinking, I wonder if anybody else in Europe have got a clue, because I haven't.
And it's sickening how he's trying to claim, you know, the kudos. Look, now with the peace, and we want peace. It's unbelievable, the gall of the man. Tristan in Southend, all right, Tristan.
Where have you been?
Where have you been, man? What's going on?
Guys, I've got to be honest, I'm really sick at the moment. I do apologise.
Oh, what's wrong? You got a cold or serious?
No. Unfortunately, they found something in a routine blood test called cancer-reactive protein. And they think they've located it in my groin, of all places, lymph nodes.
So they found it early, have they? Yeah.
Well, I hope they have, because I won't know for another 2 weeks.
Do you know what you've had? It's sad actually, because you know, and I know you're not a self-pitying person, but you've had a run of terrible medical disasters, haven't you?
Yeah, well, all I can say is quit smoking, guys, while you still can. But anyway, the show is too big to be about me. I have a question tonight, please, Andre and Ash. Now, I've not been able to follow the news. I hear that a Russian warship either came down the Channel or the North Sea today.
That's right,
which is extremely worrying.
It was guarding guarding an oil tanker, basically.
Right, well, you know, Putin and the world must be absolutely wetting themselves laughing at this.
Oh, I think so.
But is it true that Starmer's gone out the country again on another plane? Oh, you're joking, mate.
Yeah, I mean, he can't show his face in this country, can he? I mean,
he doesn't.
Everyone hates him.
The reality is, I think somebody was saying the other day that because of his, he doesn't have a political philosophy. What he believes is that because he's a good person, he can solve problems one by one. Now, actually,
he's not a good person.
In a sense, that probably works in international relations because it is just one problem that's an intellectual challenge and the next one. But what is amazing about him, you know, he's got... So Rishi Sunak was probably the first British Prime Minister who wasn't very good at politics. I think Keir Starmer's the first person who isn't interested in politics.
Yeah, at least Rishi, he was a terrible Prime Minister in so many ways, but at least you could like him as a person. I could picture myself going down the pub and having a conversation with Rishi Sunak. He was very human. Keir is just... I don't know what planet he's on. I want to like him. I want him to do well for the sake of the country. I really do. But jetting off again, I cannot believe he's done this.
He's better than him in being here, though, isn't he?
I mean, if you think about it, what will he be remembered for? And reality is, he'll be remembered for expanding abortion and legalising euthanasia.
I also think he'll be known as the worst ever Prime Minister by quite a long shot.
What is it? The John Major Award for Worst Prime Minister Ever goes to Keir Starmer.
Starmer, I never thought I'd see anyone more unpopular than John Major, but Starmer has done it with bells on. He really has. I mean, where's he jetting off to?
Well, he's gone to claim, you know, the rewards for the peace, which hasn't even happened. There's no ships going through the Straits of Hormuz, not one. By the way,
I thought the Pakistanis were the only serious people. I mean, they've obviously attempted to broker a deal. Britain's not involved. No, you know, at the end of the day, if you cannot send one warship to defend British sovereign territory in Cyprus, you're a joke.
Anyway, look, we've got to go, Tristan. Let's quickly just